All right. Yep. You ready? Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Historic Preservation Architectural Review Commission, Thursday, July 14th, 6 o'clock meeting. This meeting is a week later than usual because of the 4th of July and some scheduling conflicts with some of the commissioners. I'm sure you didn't mind. We didn't have it last week. Ooh, bless you. Goodness.
Thank you.
Okay. I've got a few announcements. I'm going to once again introduce John Robitaille, who is our new building official. He's been here now 4 months, 3 months, 3, 4. So, okay. And he's doing a lot of the commercial work and also involved with Joe and Janelle. They're sort of a team, three-person team. Also, I want to introduce a new commissioner who we have here. It's Melanie Moser, and she is a member of the Planning Commission, and she is taking over Joe's spot, who was also on the Planning Commission. According to our guidelines, we have a voting representative of the Planning Commission as part of our group. So welcome.
Thank you.
And also, I wanted to thank Joe Hawker, who is still on the Planning Commission, and he's actually going to continue as the Planning Commission's representative on our ad hoc committee. But he helped us out a lot. He contributed a lot. And if you're listening, Joe, thank you very much. Also, want to thank Phil, this is his last meeting. He's retiring from our commission, and he has certainly done a lot, raised the bar quite a bit. It's the first time we've had he's retired now, but a registered architect on the Planning Commission. And I think it's been a real asset. I think, Phil has given us a lot and kept us out of trouble frequently. So again, Phil, thank you very much. Hope you'll come visit. And
I will.
good. And I'm also asked Phil if I could call upon him to be on some of our committees from time to time, which he very kindly agreed to. I think that's it. Have I missed it? Oh, Candace, I'm sorry. Oh, and we have a new ex officio from City Council. And Candace, do you want to say anything or?
Pleased to be here.
Oh, good. Okay. So we're very happy to have you here as well. Did I miss anybody else? No? Okay. All right. We're going to move on to the minutes. Does anybody have any comments? Any questions, concerns, or comments about the minutes? Corrections?
Motion
Nothing?
to accept.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
Anyone?
was here
Oh, you weren't here, so you're going to abstain.
after
Okay.
that meeting. so-
Okay, all right, very good. All right, so it's passed, the minutes are passed. So then we're going to move into our first applicant, which is presentation and discussion and possible action on H1322 on behalf of Carol Decatur and Michael Decatur. Renovations for the exterior of an existing non-contributing house for replacement of siding, roofing, windows, and the addition of a roof over the front door. The property is located at 34 Ship Carpenter Square, Sussex County Tax Map 335-8.07-323.00R4H. And Michael, I saw you come in. Oh, there you are. Thank you. Okay, well, welcome.
Oh, thank you.
And you've
Good
been
evening.
using a lot of printing copy paper.
Well, I think that was something that was a requirement, so I'm trying to fulfill the criteria that you've set.
Okay.
You filled it already.
Well, thank you for your time. So my name is Michael Decatur. I reside over 34 Ship Apartment Square, not too far away. I'm with my mother. This is our family house. We've been coming to Lewis since about 1969. My father was a Washingtonian. We ended up buying the property back in 1992. Prior to that, we rented little properties down in South Bethany and Rehoboth, and then decided that Lewis was really the best place for us to be. We really enjoyed the town. And so we purchased the lot back in 92, had a condo down at Ocean House for about 10, let's see, we bought that in 93. I just sold it last year. And now what we've decided to do is renovate the house that we built in 2002. It obviously has original style wood structure. So it's a cedar shake roof with cedar clapboard siding with steel cut nails and original style wood windows. And because of the rather harsh environment that we've been seeing more of late with the hot sun and whatnot, this structure we thought would last more than 20 years, and actually it's been deteriorating. And so it's actually been in need of repair probably since at least 5 years ago or so. So what we'd like to do is pursue a course that our neighbors on either side of us have pursued. And they have decided to go with a standing metal seam roof on both sides of our house, on the north side and the south side. And on the south side, the resident ended up using Anderson 400 E series aluminum clad windows, and he used the smooth side Hardy plank board as well, which we would like to do as well. So the rhythm and the feel of the house will look the same. It's just going to have a little more longevity in terms of overall maintenance and durability.
That's it. Pretty
I
simple.
mean, I can pursue more if you'd like to go through the packet or answer questions.
Well, why don't we, I think your packet was very extensive. I thank you for that very much.
Thank you.
And also like the additional photographs, which I hadn't seen, of what the original structure looked like.
Yes, exactly. So at the
And
time
I
when we
mean,
had
yeah.
we had a pre-meeting to this meeting, and we were in discussion about what course of action would be best to take. And there was information that I did not have at my fingertips at the time.
Mhm.
And so I went back through our photo archives and ended up pulling up a number of photographs when my parents found the house that we initially decided upon and eventually used, which was over in Harbison. And we had a whole series of photographs taken there. They're not the best photographs, unfortunately, because my mother used a little point and shoot camera, so the exposures are a little bit dark. But it's very clear in this house. What occurred was our house is actually more of a reproduction of an original house than an original house. So with this, my friend who was the architect for this property, he was able to go out, look at the house, and there was enough standing there, and there was a gable end that was up. So he could sit there and take all the dimensions. He could see where windows were located and get the general sort of feel of the house, which was good. And then what happened was when they actually ended up moving the house, much of the house was not used, and then none of the house was used in the exterior. So all of the boards that were on the floor or on the ceiling in the original house, we ended up using them on the interior. Some of the exposed beams, so you have sort of a drywall with a beam and a ceiling, which used to be the floor, which is now the ceiling. Some of the mantles in the house were reused. Some of the interior trim bits were used, but the rest of the house essentially was a reproduction of this house. All the framing, all the windows, all the siding, everything was brand new back in 2002 when we commenced.
Okay.
And the other thing is with the original house, which I could not answer at the time, is the original structure is the two-story structure. The front of the house, which is the one-story structure where our parlor is, that's actually an add-on. That's part of the new modern part of the house.
Oh, really?
Yes. So one of the discussions that we had when John and Joe came out to sort of do a little inspection on some of the windows or whatnot, we were trying to figure out how we would integrate. If we were to replace just the cedar on the double story part, how would we integrate that with the front with it sort of looking correct? And we couldn't really come to any kind of successful conclusion on that. So what we decided to do was we'll just do the hardy board and do the metal standing seam like our neighbors did and pursue the windows like our neighbors did. And the house will look beautiful and we'll keep the rhythm of the rest of the street.
So, okay, so the face of the 1-story and 2-story are just continuous, right? There's no definition between the two.
Correct, right. It's one face.
And you probably didn't have that original front door with the windows, the glass surrounds either. That seems a little,
Actually, I do have a photograph of the door that they brought. I can show you that, actually.
I mean, there's a photograph we don't
I
have.
have a photograph that they, when they brought the house and put it up on Jack's, there was a picture. It doesn't have a lot of detail because it sort of was snowing that day, but this is what they brought. So they were able to use the dimensions, I believe, from that photograph.
Really?
And then probably, I mean, I know that the door is a fur door. It's a new door. All the transom lights are all new. They're all that sort of modern double pane and, with insulated glass and whatnot. But the feel of it is the spirit of what was there. I think this house is really living more of a spirit than it is in a true authenticity. This is the actual wood that we actually, were able to bring over.
Did I read somewhere that you're just cleaning up the windows, or are you replacing
So what ended up
them?
happening is, yeah, so I have a little carriage house in the back,
Mhm.
which is also, so my house is already, the house itself and the garage is a mixture between cedar shake on the house and standing metal seam on the house, and the garage is standing metal seam. So what I ended up doing was I painted the windows in the back because they had deteriorated that were on the garage, and I need to sort of scrape them and clean them up. But right now, I'm not doing anything with the structure in the back.
Right.
We're just talking about the house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, does anyone have any questions? Does anybody want to start?
I just wanted to comment, that the house is a dark house, dark brown, and the roof is cedar, but it's going to be completely different. It's going to be gray, light gray. And it's not going to be look at with as if it were historically preserved.
The comment that I can make to that is when I had submitted, so I have a architectural review committee in my neighborhood that I have to meet the criteria for as well, of which they've approved to this project.
Yes,
When I
read
went to
that.
them and I said, you tell me what colors you would like to see on this house. And they recommended that I do a neutral gray color. So they picked it, I didn't. Because I wanted this to work for my neighborhood as well, because they obviously would have had a concern similar to yours. And I said, okay, I'll make the color what you would like it to be.
That was after you told them that you wanted to use the hardy board.
Yeah, well, they knew that because when I submitted the proposal,
Right.
they knew where I wanted to go. And then originally I wanted to come out with, I was going to use a different color, but they didn't want me to use a blue. And they said, we would really prefer you to use a more neutral color.
Well,
Okay,
yeah.
what colors would you like? And they gave me a whole list of colors and I just picked one of the colors
Right,
they
yeah,
recommended.
but I think what the point Phil's trying to make is following our guidelines, which we talked about before, is that we like to, our guidelines encourage identifying the original historic structure separate from additions that are added on or modifications that are done later, and also following the original wood materials that would have been, on the original structure.
Mhm.
So I think that's what Phil's alluding
That's what I
to.
was getting at.
Well, having said that, I believe I have the correct house. 38 Ship Carpenter Square, I think went through renovations. It's probably more than 5 years ago, but it seems, let's call it 5 years ago, probably more. And the color, that house was very dark before the renovations. And if I've got the right picture here, with the metal roof, and it went to a green with a red door. So that, in keeping with our consistency, I think, in my opinion, the colors that you've chosen are fine.
Oh, yeah, I don't think we're really questioning colors. We're questioning material and approach, because in the historic district,
Right.
our guidelines follow, if wood was the original material,
Oh, I
follow
see.
that.
I thought we were talking about color.
No,
Okay, never mind,
No,
never mind, sorry.
we are and we aren't. But I mean, but so Ship Carpenter Square has their own review
Mhm.
committee,
Mhm.
and that's what you're referring to.
Mhm.
And I'm just taking it back to what our guidelines charge us to follow or be considerate of. And that's that the historic structure, the original historic structure on the site is maintained the same way it was and either refurbished or replaced or whatever. And so in that case, the original structure, you're changing it completely. And now the whole building is going to be, all the buildings are going to be one material, one color, and it will no longer have that look of a historic structure with additions and modifications, which happen over time in
Mhm.
a historic town. And that's happened to several of the structures. You know,
Well,
your
my
neighbors.
immediate neighbor has that. It's
That's
the original
exactly
Dunbar
right.
house. Because I look out my kitchen window and he has all standing metal seam roof, didn't have it before. He's got all smooth party board planking all the way around the house.
Yeah.
The front door is not wood. He added a little shed roof
Mhm.
for to protect it like I would do because the weather has rotted out the sill of my door. And he's used the Anderson 400 series aluminum clad windows.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at, I'm like, all right, I want to do what he did. And I look at the other way and he's done the same thing.
I
So, and
know.
then the other house on the other side did the same thing. So I'm thinking, well, okay, can I pursue this course of action? I think it's a reasonable pursuit at this point.
Yeah, and all 3 or 4 of those houses now look like they're no longer historic houses that evolved over time. And they could be anywhere.
And my purpose of noting the color change, it's dramatic. I mean, I even wondered if you realize how dramatic it's going to be. It's not an old historic house anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. Let's jump around. Anybody else have any comments? Bill?
I'd like to
I
make
see
a
you
couple.
nodding.
Yeah. This front overhang that we're proposing to add.
Mhm.
I was looking at here on your drawing here. It doesn't have a page number. I was
Here,
looking for it.
right
Yeah, it doesn't have a page number.
Bill,
It's
here's
a
a
drawing
sketch.
number.
Yeah, but it just looks a little too contemporary to me. That's my thinking. It doesn't fit in with the rhythm and scale of the houses along there. It's metal there. Is that metal?
Well, we were looking at
That's the
something
side.
that would be a simple solution to keep water off of the wood of the front door.
Yeah.
Because it's rotted out the sill. And so I was kind of amazed. I remember when I spoke with my friend who's the architect for the house, why did you do that originally? And I think there was a conversation about it because this house originally had a porch on it. And in the pictures way in the back that I have,
Yeah.
it shows where the water line is. You can clearly see that there was a porch on there.
Uh-huh.
The issue with it was that my father didn't want to put a porch on it because it would ruin the light in the front rooms.
Uh-huh.
And because of your setback rules, I couldn't put a front porch on it. That was the size of the original house anyway.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we're trying to find some sort of a compromise here. Now, it could, if you look at 36 Ship Carpenter Square, which is the house, which is right next to me,
Mhm.
with that, they ended up putting on a little shed roof.
Yeah.
And I could do that because I have a brick area and little steps or whatnot. I think it would be perfectly lovely and I'm
Your
perfectly willing
comments
to
are
see
coming
that.
right at me because that's
I would
exactly
love
what I
that.
was thinking.
I think it would be great.
Yeah.
I had
That's-
originally suggested
just
that to my
me, though.
architect.
That's just me, but that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is what is this, why couldn't he put a front porch across? I thought porches could go into the setback.
So front porches can encroach into the setback by a certain amount. It depends on where the house already is and where the porch ends up going again, I don't know where the survey is. Depends on the size of the porch. That would then could potentially impact the front yard setback because front porches are allowed to encroach 10 feet into the front yard setback. But without knowing where the setback line is, I can't say where.
What is the setback of Ship Carpenter Square, 4th Street?
Here,
Is that R2?
he's got this.
So it's R4.
He's got it.
So it's going to
marked.
be the existing building line, the established building line. Sorry, I always want to call it the wrong
I'm
one.
sorry.
So that porch would go into the front yard.
Yes, front porches can, for everywhere, can go into the front yard setback. Let me look.
Right, but the established building line is where the house is. So he can go 10 feet into that
Yes,
based upon the survey that's here. from.
Yeah, from 4th Street, it looks like he's on, I think we're on page 10 on the online packet. It looks like there's 16 feet for just actually to a setback line, to the house setback line, and the house is actually 22.9 feet based on the survey. I don't know how old, let me see how, if this has got a date on it. But yeah, the a front porch can encroach 10 feet, so you've got plenty of room to add a front porch.
Okay, so I can't fully address the dimensions of the front porch. If you look sort of in the back of your booklet, the first
Yeah.
original picture of the house where I actually have the little notes, this Hunter House surface. If you look at that, there was some sort of a shed roof there. I have no idea what the dimension was or how far out it was. And so at the time, when my father was discussing the dimensions with my architect, I think they concluded that they were not going to do they didn't want that kind of lack of light. And
But
so
you're
they
willing.
just chose not to do it. But I'm willing to put like what my neighbor has done, a little shed.
Like a little portico.
I have no problem. Portico, no problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. In fact, that was my preference. My architect sort of turned me down on that. I'm like, no, actually, I'd rather do it this way. But I'm like, okay.
Bring him up here. I'll talk to him.
No problem, no problem.
Okay.
That's good. I have just a couple more comments. if I
Okay,
may.
sure. Go ahead.
On your trim around your windows.
Yes.
So I'm gonna get just looking at the front of the house, some of your trim really look bad. And from the drawings I saw, are you gonna replace all that trim all the way around the house, or are you gonna replace the trim in the front, or talk to me a little bit about that?
All that will be renewed.
You gonna put that in cedar?
It's going to be, what I would like to do is we're going to replace the windows because a lot of the sills in the windows are sort of beyond repair. And these were new windows back in 2002.
Are they gonna be inserts?
These are going to be, I'm not quite sure how it's going to work. The contractor came out, he's done most of the other houses in my neighborhood. And he said that what we're going to do is we'll come and take these windows out. The contention so much wasn't the outside, was the inside. We have to take all the trim off in order to put the new windows in or not. He didn't know that at the time. But essentially, it would be, everything would be replaced, and it would have either the trim would be how they would trim it out with the hardy board on the outside of it, but it would all be renewed. So
And going back on the clapboard and
Yeah.
around the house,
Mhm.
I noticed those boards just peeled off.
absolutely.
And were they pine?
No, this was original cedar and they used regular straight cut nails on it, steel cut nails. And so because I don't have a large maple tree in the front yard, I don't get any shade there, which was a
Yeah.
lot of the concern. And the other thing with the cedar is that, this is not old growth cedar from 200 years ago that has a lot of resin in it. This is sort of modern cedar where they grow it and it grows much faster. It doesn't have that kind of durability.
Yeah.
And so
I was just wondering
it started to
because-
cup and pull by 2013, 2014. We only got maybe 14 years.
Yeah,
out of
you
it.
got cheated.
It's terrible.
I've got the clapboard in the front of mine and it faces the sun just like yours does.
Mhm.
Mine's cedar. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, this is cedar too.
Yeah, it just didn't hold up.
Yeah. I wasn't around a lot when this house was being built because I was living up in New York. And so my parents kind of did this project and I came down once or twice, but I was not very involved in it. And so I didn't really have any kind of say.
I come from where I'm thinking here. The hardy blanket is an approved material. It's approved by us.
Mhm.
But I looked at all the houses in the square. I just went around, looked at all of them. I counted those that had hardy board, those that had cedar, those were cedar shake. I just took a good look at the whole complex.
Mhm.
Because I know the gentleman who put all the houses in there and he's a good friend of mine.
Oh,
And
okay.
he's concerned about the changes that are being made in the square, that the changes are not reflective of the period that, when they put them in there and tried to restore them to that. And he's very concerned about that. And I told him I would certainly, look at that closely whenever I'm looking at a house that's in the square. And so I agree with the rest of the commissioners here that I think if there's some way that we could use the materials that are of that period, because it's a special place, Ship Carpenter Square. It's really special. And very few towns have been able to do anything like that, where you can move them in and set them up like that. So I'd ask that, think about that again, if you would. Instead of hardy plank, if you would go You certainly can look at mine. Mine's on Second Street and I've got cedar and it's held up. I guess, I don't know, you just got some bad material maybe.
Well, I think maybe there's some other construction issues, the contractor, because you've got so much rot around your windows. There seems
Yeah,
to be a
that's
lot
true,
of
too.
several things that, I mean, for 20 years old, you shouldn't have the conditions you have.
Well, yeah, it surprised me.
Yeah.
Because
So-
my cedar's 1999.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
3 years ago.
So I couldn't find anywhere, you said you are going to replace all the trim, the window trim, the sash, going to be, that's going to have to be redone. I didn't see anywhere where you're telling us what it's going to look like. So we would need a submission on a drawing on telling us, make sure it's just not flat boards, it's appropriate for the style and the period of the house.
Okay.
Okay.
I second just what Barbara said,
Mhm,
because that was my next question. What is this trim going to look like?
mhm.
The windows and the window trim on a house are so very important. And just for you to say, well, the contractor said he was going to do this, well, what is he going to do? Is he going to match historic trim? Or is he just going to put up flat boards? Is it going to be an apron underneath the windowsill or not? We'd like to know that.
I believe so. I mean, the window, we were trying to replicate the look of it so that it was the same as what we had. It's just that the window would be an aluminum-clad window instead of just a regular wood window. But the trim itself, if the trim itself needs to be
It just doesn't,
replicated,
it doesn't say, it doesn't,
I don't really
yeah,
have an issue.
there's no
with the trim.
notation
I mean,
about the trim at all. So at this point, we just don't know what you're planning.
Other than in the application checklist, you say that the trim is going to be wood, but then the submission by the contractor talks about solid PVC.
No, there's no PVC. There's no vinyl anywhere.
But the submission for the contract from One Call
Uh-huh.
states solid PVC for trim. So
It's AZAC. AZAC
AZAC.
wood. It's a full composite. It's not vinyl. It's a full dense composite material.
Right. He's aware of that because he knows that my neighborhood, we're not allowed to use that.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, just-
we were clear on that. And he said, no, there's going to be no PVC in anything. So
You've got a light fixture right now next to the front door. Are you replacing it, keeping it?
I'll just keep it.
All right. Would you like,
Yeah, I'd like to add a comment. Whenever I've passed the house, I always thought that the house was the old structure and then the sort of additions in the back were new. And there was a signal to me because the siding went vertically instead of horizontally. Now, I don't know if that's actually the case. And then the other signal to me was the red roofs on the buildings in the back. And so it was a little disappointing to see everything with the same horizontal siding, with the same roof.
Well, the siding, the clapboard's all horizontal right now. There's no vertical anything.
Isn't one of the structures in the back have vertical?
Well, the carriage house
The
does.
carriage house.
The carriage house has board and batten style,
And there is red roofs on
and
that.
there's a red roof on that as well.
And that's new.
That was built in 2002.
Yeah.
Correct. But that's a new structure. That's a modern structure, so to speak.
But what I'm saying is that there's a signal there architecturally that says, I'm new. This is the old one.
Oh, I see. what you're saying.
And that's going to disappear when hardy plank goes on everything.
Well, I'm not doing the back, I'm not doing the garage in the back. That will be exactly the same. The reveal of 4 inches of the clapboard on the house is going to look exactly the same as it does now. It will be gray. That's the only difference.
but the original historic structure is just the front 2 sections, correct?
Right.
And so that's what she's talking about. She's talking about identifying, as I've said previously, our guidelines are to identify the original historic structure and everything that's added to should be identifiable in
Mhm.
materials, style,
Window details.
Right.
can be window details. And so you're no longer doing that. You're just making everything look like it all came in off the truck yesterday, all at one time. And that's not the history of that structure. That history has, time to it. And so our charge is
Mhm.
to show that
Right.
And even though the fact that it's a moved structure and the state hasn't in the past considered it contributing, it's contributing by date. And our guidelines refer to the date of the structures as contributing. And so in that case, we actually call out for the front of historic structures to be wood material. And then subsequent materials in the back can be changed to hardy.
So I'm just sort of curious, just a sidestep. So why wasn't this criteria applied to my neighbors then?
I do not know, but they did not come before HMARC, to my knowledge. They may have come before HPC, which was how many years ago? I forget.
Well, for us, if we were to do the cedar on the front of the house, we would have to probably, I don't think the house would look right unless we continued the whole front of it and the whole side of it. And of course, our concern there is I don't have a big tree there, so I'm going to have this issue with it cupping and pulling and drying out again.
I
And I don't
don't,
want to replace it again.
I don't-
And this is a $200,000 project, and it's
I
not in
don't,
my budget to spend another $200,000.
I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think it was done properly to begin with. I don't think you had a vapor barrier. I don't think you had anything. And I don't think you got real good cedar. There is good cedar around and you have to find it, but it's out there. And if it's important, I mean, we have people in the audience that have used cedar on structures.
And you mentioned your architect. Can he provide or she provide a window detail that we can
Yes, they-
approve
yeah.
and
Of course.
vote on?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I can do that.
Michael, you haven't had a chance yet.
No, I just wanted to come back to the overhang as well. I mean, this is a federal style house. According to the survey, originally it was constructed in 1740. You're proposing to use zinc, which was very, very commonly used beginning in this country in the early 1700s. I tend to agree with Bill, however, for this style house, if you were to use a gabled sort of roof, I think it would be, if you do some sort of historical research, it might be a bit more appropriate
Okay.
for what you're presenting here. The other issue, I think, is the fact that basically this structure, it's very, very unfortunate that after 21 years, it just sort of disintegrated. And I guess one of my questions is was that siding ever treated prior or was just left natural? I know in Bill's case, and I know in my case as well, through proper priming and through, routine maintenance, painting, that the natural siding does sort of hold up for many, many years. And, and looking at this, it looked, at least to me anyway, it looks like it may not have had any sort of preservative or anything applied to the outside.
I can't answer that directly, but
yeah.
I think you're probably correct.
Yeah. So,
Just from the evidence
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the
so-
condition that it's in.
but, the materials you're proposing, the Anderson 400 windows are things that we've approved in the past.
Mhm.
And they're a very, very nice product. And I think that generally what you're proposing, you're not changing the overall shape of the structure, and it fits basically with the rhythm and scale, the height, and complies at least with our city code and certain aspects of the Secretary of the Interior standards, but not all, all of them. So that's about all I've got to say at this point.
George, you haven't spoken.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say other than I kind of like what the gentleman's proposed. But it sounds like there's enough opinion on the commission to maybe recommend that this application be withdrawn to come back next month with more detail.
I can do that.
Okay, I mean,
I mean, this is, I hope this is not going to be a 5-year process.
No.
well, no,
no,
it
it's,
shouldn't. It's just
you
that
know.
we can't, when our
Right. I
guidelines,
understand.
charge us to
Right.
do one thing and an applicant wants to do something
Right.
that's in sort of the reverse of it, or,
Right.
in opposition to it, we can't really vote for it, so.
Just to put it out there, if we're going to sort of discontinue this, what if I were to do a standing metal seam on the parlor, which is the single floor part on the front,
Mhm.
and I leave the cedar shake on the top of the house, which is the old structure,
Mhm.
and then I do new windows all the way around with the aluminum clad windows, and then I do the rest of the house in cedar. Is that something?
Yeah,
That's
so
what
you're
you
gonna
want.
you're gonna do the whole face in
I'll do
cedar
the entire house in cedar.
and the two sides.
Right. I'll spend another 300 grand doing it.
Yep. And then
It's sort of a-
and then you can do the metal on the lower one-story side because that was
'cause
added
that's a
later.
new part, right? So the old,
And then you
so-
do cedar on the roof of the original, the two-story house, the faces worth.
correct. The cedar shake on the two-story house, the original, that entire house would be done in cedar,
Siding and roof.
siding and roof but it would have aluminum clad windows all the way around, including the little top ones. Okay.
Mhm.
And then, and
That's
I
what
would
you
make the
proposed
window
here.
trim
To
to,
match with.
I would have my architect match with whatever the existing trim
Yes.
is, and that would probably be wood, I would
Mhm.
imagine. That would have to be painted, that's fine.
Mhm.
And then the parlor area in the front would have standing metal seam.
Mhm.
And then I think it wouldn't look right, honestly, if I just did, I think I have to do the whole thing in
I
cedar
think you do
again.
because the
Yeah.
plane doesn't change.
It doesn't, it
If
won't
they
look,
had-
well,
if
that
they
was
had-
the issue that we had when the contractor came out. He goes, there's no way to reconcile this.
Yeah,
So-
it's very awkward when the plane doesn't change. It has to set back or extend
Right,
forward.
exactly,
And when that doesn't happen,
Right.
it just is awkward.
right.
Madam Chair, if he does that, then I think we could probably entertain this.
And I would do the gable, a little gable portico.
Yeah.
Okay, but we still need we
I'd
need
have to
a
have all
submission
that.
and a
No,
submission
no,
of
I'll go
that.
through all the hoops again.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a lot cleaner instead of us making this
Coming
long,
back with it. Okay.
Right.
this
So what
long.
I don't want to do is I don't want to use the original steel cut nails because most of those rusted. and
You don't
fell
have
off.
to.
I'm going to use stainless steel ring nails. I mean, there are certain things, he would probably wrap the house in a more modern sort of air bubble vapor wrap,
Hopefully.
whatever he calls that thing. I don't know what it is.
Mhm.
So there are going to be some modern things behind it, but the look of it would be the same.
But remind your architect that you're in a historic district
No, I realize
and,
that.
and you're doing historic preservation
I understand that. I appreciate that. Yeah.
and there
I
are
understand.
principles. to
These
follow.
are, this is the deal. It's like, if you want to live here, this is what you got to do. That's, I get it.
You got
I
it.
get It's sort of a, absolutely.
Yes,
No, I
yes.
understand it.
Yeah, welcome
It's,
to the club.
Right. It's, so, okay.
I
So-
do just want to say that part of the reason why I thought your plans were okay was because of the neighboring houses. And I haven't paid that close of attention, but going down, West Fourth Street there, over the last 10 years, those other houses have made these changes and they had to have come before H Park.
Not, well, but it's been a while.
10 years?
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah,
it's just-
the
I can't-
Dunbar
yeah.
House is more modern than not.
Right.
It wasn't that long ago, but I.
Right.
can't
Well,
say
I mean,
the one before.
some of the materials have been approved, but
Right.
usually not on the
Yeah,
original structure.
The only reason I asked for that, because I've said it before, is that this commission has to be consistent in their decisions. When we allow things and when we don't allow things, they're again going along with the rhythm and scale of the street.
Mhm.
Fair is fair. And that's, I'll point that out probably again sometime. But
Well, I
just
mean, I'm
wanted to-
not here to waste your time,
no, no.
obviously, because I thought that the criteria was applied to my neighbors, then this is what's acceptable, a route to pursue, then I'm just doing likewise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
a
reasonable
you know.
thought process. And I can't speak to those other
Mhm.
submissions. So, but
Okay,
we really,
so I'll withdraw.
thank
and
you very
then,
much.
And I will come back with a counter proposal that we
Yes,
discussed.
and you'll
And then
You'll
we'll
have
pursue it
the
from there.
window trim drawing
Yep.
and you'll have the little overhang.
Yep.
As we discussed,
Mhm.
and anything else.
And I'll have to have the contractor come and requote it, obviously.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna need to see that
Yeah.
before I get ready to get a building permit.
I
Madam
appreciate.
Chair, I have a couple things I'd like to say. I've
Oh,
not had an
sure.
opportunity
Oh, I
to
thought you
speak.
spoke earlier.
No, I
I'm
made two
sorry.
comments to his comments, but I have
I'm
not
very
spoken.
sorry, Randy.
I think that we get waylaid in our thinking here because of material use and the effect that material use has on aesthetic. We don't have purview over paint colors. So this gentleman, if he wanted to paint his house right now gray, he could. So, so as a result of that, in our material choices, we or this body, prior to my involvement in it, approved hardy plank, the crappy little thin hardy plank to be used in the historic district versus a deeper profile. And if you look at all of the photographs that are in here, the distinction between the house to the right of his that Dave Dunbar did the design work on and the others that have changed is the profile of the siding. What makes that house look more historic is the depth of the profile of the siding. Now, we can talk about the roof and the pediments and all of those things, but when it comes to siding, that's what makes the difference. You can never take a piece of 3/8 inch or 3/16 inch hardy, put it on a wall and have it look like a 5/8 butt or 3/4 butt piece of siding. But there are plenty of sidings out there that can be painted that meet that criteria. And in other areas, it's allowed, and we do it all the time. And to Commissioner Thompson's point, we're not consistent in that, because there are houses that this body and the predecessor bodies to this have approved that did not have wood put back on the face of it, that did get painted. And I'm not saying, so when I looked at this application, I said, it's not the loss of the dark brown aged cedar that causes the devastation to the outside of this house. If you just put hardy on it, it's the loss of the profiles. And that's something that I think that this body needs to get clear on about what we are approving and not approving, because to make someone in 2022 or 23, probably by the time, not because of our approval of this body, but by the time your contractor is able to source materials, get your job going, to make them use wood isn't being a whole lot of different things. It certainly isn't being environmentally conscious, because we're just cutting down trees. It is not looking at what the long-term maintenance aspects of properties in Lewis are affected by. Because when you paint a piece of composite 5/8 butt siding, it will last, the paint job on it will last for the next 15 years. All you got to do is light power washing on it. But there's no way that the cedar, to your point, because it's gotten worse since 2002.
I think
The
so.
quality of the cedar materials that you're going to find, unless you go out and buy a 7/8 butt clear cedar siding, which God help you if you do, it is just not going to hold up. So I'm reticent to think that and maybe it's the consensus of the body that this gentleman has to put cedar on his house, but I don't think that ought to be a requirement, nor that he ought to have to put wood for the profiles of his trim, because there are composite materials that exist in the market today that he can do an exact replication of every piece of trim that's on there. And I defy anybody to walk up to it or walk by it or ride by it or stand right next to it and say, that's composite, that's wood. Because once it's painted, you're never going to know the difference. I could take the siding off of your house, put composite siding that's exactly the same profiles, and when you pulled up in your driveway, you would not notice it. That's my thoughts.
The challenge we have is to preserve the historic character of the town. The older homes, the older structures that have original wood siding on it are very obvious even when you drive by. You don't even have to walk by, that you can identify those structures, the siding on those structures, just like that, from new siding. And the synthetic materials, the smooth, flawless synthetic materials, they're very identifiable. We did a walking tour several years ago, HPC did. And when you walk the town, you can really see it. So I don't know the answer. I appreciate very much what you've just shared. And I think one of our charges is to go back and look at all materials that are available and have open discussions about it. But any historic town that requires and preserves original materials has a look to it.
But we'll make somebody put wood on the front of their building and let them put vinyl on the sides in the historic district.
We're not-
It doesn't, I mean, it's incompatible. It really is, Madam Chair. And what I'm saying is you cannot tell the difference of a smooth old siding and a new composite siding painted, not a textured cedar siding, not a heavy, knotty cedar siding that's all burled up. But if it's been painted over the last 150 years, it has so much paint on it. That's why I said what I said to the commissioner sitting next to me. I guarantee I
Well,
can
he
take 5 pieces.
he sands his wood before he paints it really nicely.
Well, which is what everybody should do.
Well, they don't. They don't.
I would also like to add, just because this board has approved a material for use doesn't mean it has to be applied here.
I don't understand
Well,
that.
that
He's
doesn't make
talking,
any sense.
no, he's saying just because we have approved hardy board in the past at times, doesn't mean it's automatically approves material on every project.
Like a non-contributing versus a
Well,
contributing.
Right, and I think that goes to rhythm and scale.
Yeah.
So.
Mm. Well,
The only thing I can say to his comment versus your comment is when I put all new cedar on, an all new cedar shake, the house is not going to look dark brown anymore. It's going to be very light
that's
wood
okay.
color for
that's
a
okay.
good period of time.
Mhm.
So when it comes to the color,
That's all right.
the brown is not going to stay.
No, I mean, there are several houses with new cedar on them
Right.
in Chip Carpenter Square. And some of them, if they care to, are doing a maintenance program on it to keep it oiled and,
Right.
which is
right.
very easy to do, not
Right.
huge amount of
Again, I
time.
can't speak to that because I wasn't here. And
I
so
know.
this is not, my father was an English professor and my mother's got Parkinson's. So
Yeah.
she's not one to be able to go out and do anything. I have to do it all.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at, all right, what is in my purview? What can I do? That's going to be
Mhm.
to satisfy all the parties involved. That's what I'm trying to do. So,
Well, appreciate it very much. Appreciate the input as well. And Randy, your comments, which we'll
thank you.
get into again. So thank you very much. We'll
Okay.
see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Franklin.
Hmm.
Franklin, yeah. Okay. I actually put my packet back in order, so so far,
So
so
did I.
good. So far, so good.
All right, presentation and discussion and possible action on H-15-22, behalf of Timeless Finds LLC, Michael Finkle, for the demolition of a non-contributing structure and construction of a new single-family house. The property is located at 130 Franklin Street, Sussex County Tax Map 335-8.12-17.00R4-8. Welcome again.
Hello, nice
Hello,
to see
hello.
everyone again.
Yeah,
State your name for the record, please, Michael.
Mike Finkle, 37519 Oyster House Road, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. And some new faces.
yes, yes,
Everyone looks a lot tanner this time around.
yes, I know.
Maybe.
I just
Maybe.
get red. I don't get tan. I just get red.
I
So
don't
I'll probably
get
get red, more red as we're explaining.
Hope not.
All right.
So you've got a big project here. You're asking
Yeah.
for a demolition of a non-contributing structure and then new construction. So you want to fill everybody in?
Yeah, sure.
Are we hearing the application for the new construction and before we approve the demolition?
It's a non-contributing.
Non-contributing doesn't have to have a
Okay.
hearing.
We don't do a,
Public hearing.
we don't
is
do a
required.
public hearing for
Okay.
non-contributing. There's no question about that.
Yes,
Thank you.
but if I may, just real quick, you guys do need to make a decision on whether the demolition should occur. And it might make sense to do that first before approving.
Well,
Okay, why don't you just give us a little tidbit of info on the demolition?
Yeah, so So we'll
and
update
why
on
you're
that.
doing it, and then we can vote, and then we can do the presentation.
Right. So when we purchased the estate, we purchased both 126 and 130, which 130 is what we're looking at. And, when it comes to height, proportion, rhythm, and scale, this magenta 1950s
Mhm.
piece that had its charm at one point, makes no sense on the street. So that's where we knew, we wanted to go with a new build, but also fit the rhythm, scale, height, and proportion of the street with the plans that we presented. So,
Okay.
the structure itself when you step inside, it's sinking. They definitely didn't support it right from underneath. The crawl space has a big opening in the back, so probably had water and, was a nice place for raccoons and, all that.
Mhm.
So, even if we wanted to restore it, it wouldn't be worth it. Again, wouldn't fit the scale, rhythm, proportion, or height of anything on the street.
Mhm.
We think it would do it much more justice to get a fresh start, but pay more contribute to the street itself and the history of Lewis.
And you want to demo everything, the sheds and all, right?
Yeah, so the shed in the back was actually condemned because it is, completely fallen in on itself. Unfortunately, that would have been a nice little project
Yeah,
to
yeah.
restore, but it's just not safe at this
Right.
point.
Does anybody have any questions about the request for demolition?
I make a motion, we approve the demolition.
Second.
Okay, so, all right, motion made and seconded. All those in favor of the request? say Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, motion passed. Thank you very much.
Could,
Starting
you,
off on a
Brian.
good foot.
I'm sorry, would
Oh,
you
sorry.
guys be able to provide a basis for your votes? Just want to make sure that we're all,
Yes.
I'd like-
Um,
I'm sorry.
Having made the motion for approval of demolition, I made the motion due to the fact that this is a non-contributing structure that's fallen into somewhat of a state of disrepair, and that greater use of the property would be new construction on that property.
Thank you. And if everybody agrees with Mr. Burton or Commissioner Burton's comments, you may also adopt them.
Agree with his comments, and I recommend approval.
I go along with Commissioner Burton, and then I want to add to that that the current structure is ugly as sin.
I wasn't gonna.
Bring it down.
We don't really cover that.
No,
We don't have that in
sorry.
our guidelines.
I withdraw my comment.
I must be a
Section
code.
2, paragraph
Yeah,
3.
yeah, I think it's something that George has been working on. I agree with the motion. And also I think it's a new construction there would be a real asset to the street and definitely as an adjacency to your property.
Right.
I totally agree with everything that's just been said.
Thank you.
And I do as well. And in addition, would you like to add that the outbuilding that's been condemned has a negative impact on the safety and welfare of the city? So it's of great concern.
Yes, I concur with the previous suggestions.
Great, okay. It passes unanimously. All right, so we have that behind us. And now we can go on to talk about your application.
All right, great.
All right, and would you like to tell us something about how you decided on this particular design as what we call infill?
Yeah.
It's a new construction totally.
Yeah, that'd be great. So we did have plans that were different to these at first. That we actually had a preliminary meeting with the city. They were nice enough to, we sat down for a good hour and a half and, went through a lot. And those previous plans, when I looked at them, they were a lot less contributing to the streetscape than what we were able to come up with now. So, I went back to my architect and basically said, look, it's a beautiful building, but it's not going to work. So that's where we changed a lot of things, especially with the windows, the face, the porch. We actually forewent a garage to make it more like the other structures on the streetscape. And what we came up with was something where I, was basically had the the HPC brochure as my guideline.
Good.
And we made sure, I was staying out there with my contractors and, my engineer guy, and basically said, look, this is what we got to do. We got to make it look like it was here in the first place. So that's when we came over with this design, the more classic 3/3 window. We are having the 6/6 pane windows, the Victorian style porch on the street. We see a mix of federal and Victorian structures. So we thought that fit in well. So when we came up with this design, we know for a fact that we fit the height of the similar streetscape, the proportion, the rhythm, and the scale, we feel are all, basically contributing to the streetscape itself and historic Lewis.
I'm sure everybody's got some questions or comments. Randy, would you like to start?
No, I'm not prepared to. I guess I misunderstood that we were reviewing this for construction, so I need to look at the plan more.
Okay. Who would like to start?
I'd be
Bill?
glad to.
Okay.
Let me see. Okay, well, it's going to look a lot better than what's there now.
Yeah, we're hoping.
No question about that at all. Question on the windows.
Okay.
Looking at the windows here, you said your windows are going to kind of match what you have over on the one next door.
Correct.
But now, when I see the design of the windows here, are they going to be 6/6?
They are going to be 6/6.
You got them drawn 4/4.
Yeah.
Correct. So in this drawing, the plans, the revised plans were made after we chose the final materials.
Okay.
So that was a case where if I went back to my architect a third time, he was going to send me a pretty hefty bill to change once again. But in the corresponding packet, which is titled,
Excuse me, Janelle, if you could just show the front elevation, I think that'll be fine. Instead of, yeah.
Okay.
the corresponding packet, 130 Franklin Ave, exterior materials list for new construction. Page 1, 2, 3, 4, page 7, thank you. That shows the windows that we will be using, and these were approved. I guess it was two days ago.
They were approved on your current house. Your
Correct,
existing house.
126 Franklin.
They were approved in order that you were not redoing all the windows and you wanted to match your existing windows. And that's why they were approved, but they're not an approved window. So we cannot approve them for new construction.
Okay, so I guess my understanding was that aluminum clad 6/6 pane was a window that would be approved by the commission.
It is, but we have set windows that we approve.
The mark.
Don't have full simulated divided lights. The ply gem only have an internal finial in the
Right.
glass. They do not have a full applied. And one of the requirements in the historic district is that the windows have to have an exterior applied mutton.
Understood. Okay.
But that's not what we
And
have.
what we've approved in the past is the Anderson 400 series, the 200 series, and the Marvin Integrity. And there's another, the architectural series in the Marvin line as well.
Okay.
So
Great. And, I realize that these discussions are important to find these little things that
Mhm.
need to be changed. So, if that along with, maybe some other minor changes if
Yeah, let me
needed.
keep going.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, let's take a look at that front door.
Okay.
Okay. They always say the door is the heart and the windows are the soul of a house. Okay. So I looked down the street and I looked at all the doors in the street, and a lot of them are different, but a lot of the houses are Victorian. So I think you're trying to get a Victorian look here.
Correct.
I would a door just looks so modern and so different. You did a good job on your door next door for your period home there.
Right.
Take a look at those doors down the street and stuff. But what I would recommend is you can easily find a good Victorian door that would not look modern looking like this one.
Yeah.
And this one looks like you'd find Nebraska. So
Gotcha.
you find you one, and you can kind of use the ones on the street just kind of as a guide, but they're, and then come back to us with a better door. I would recommend,
Right.
because that door just is so, modern looking.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of Facebook Marketplace. That's where I find a lot of my antiques.
You have no trouble.
Yeah.
You got that.
Right.
Let me see, what else? Talk to me a little bit about the brick here. So this brick is this brick going to be like, it's not going to be like what you did with your property next door to you, right? Or is it?
No, it will not be.
Is it going to be blocked with brick veneer,
For the front,
particularly in the front? Yes,
we were hoping for block with brick veneer,
you are. Okay.
and it is a actual antique brick just cut to size.
Okay. So it's the same size as a normal brick.
The depth is just, it's not full depth, it's half the
Right, it's
depth.
not
That's
full
what you're
depth.
saying,
Half the
right?
depth. Okay, well,
Yes.
that's all right.
But they do also come with corner bricks,
Okay,
so it completely hides the,
that's fine.
you'd have to dig down with a shovel to see the concrete.
Exactly. That's fine. I think that's all I'm going to say for now.
Okay. George, do you have anything you want to?
No,
Yes,
just
ma'am.
to go along with what Randy and Bill said, and particularly with the door, that was the only comment I had, so.
Yeah, my, if you don't mind, I definitely do want to find an antique door to present for timings of presenting all my things in time.
Mhm.
That could
That's
be
what I
changed,
had.
couldn't it?
But I'd love to change it out for, a
Okay.
period mahogany antique door. And
Okay.
honestly, it's going to be cheaper than the new one. So,
Okay.
and my carpenter's used to me giving him
Well,
little
let's-
custom
well,
jobs to
let's
do.
wait
I knew
So
you could do it.
Thank you.
Motion.
Okay.
Melissa, do you have any questions?
Actually, I had a question about the site plan. I don't know if this is entirely within our purview, but I noticed that the house is 8.9 feet at its closest to the house to the west. And the driveway is going in there. Isn't that correct? Next to the house?
the 8.9 feet gap that you're seeing should be the property line itself.
Yeah, from
think
the property
it's-
line to the house.
I thought it, but
Oh,
it's-
yes,
isn't it,
correct.
isn't it 10.6 to the house from the property
So
line?
I'll get on the same document.
No, that's on the other side. That's
Oh, the
on-
left side, you're looking at the right
I'm
side?
looking at the right side. Yes,
Okay, yeah, that looks like 8.9.
right.
Okay,
And the driveway's going in there. And I'm wondering why the house couldn't slide over a couple of feet to
Sure.
the left
yeah,
to give the driveway at least a full 9 feet and maybe a little extra so that you can screen from the neighboring property.
I wish it could. The one problem there is the HVAC unit, the outdoor HVAC unit. Where it is to be placed now, that gives us really close within the setback. So that HVAC unit is on the opposite side. So pretty much what we're doing is have to sacrifice for a skinny driveway.
where
the
is your
setback.
HVAC unit, Tom? That's going to be on the left side of the house? Is it towards the rear of that last bump out?
So after the rear elevations, that would be page, I believe, 4 of the building plans themselves.
Just the big drawing?
Yeah. that one.
Yours.
Your AC unit is sitting in your outside of your setback. Right? Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, it's about the
There.
middle.
So it's already sitting in that space that you're trying to avoid, so why can't you shift it over? What's the code on the mechanicals?
From
Where
the
they are?
side setback.
8 feet setback on the sides of the floor.
It has to be, the mechanical has to be 8 feet, or can it be in the 8-foot setback?
Cannot be in
So this currently can't be that where it's shown.
Well, so where we have it going, it just fits inside the 8-foot setback. For,
So that's why he's saying he can't move the house, because if he
The
moves the
drive.
So
house,
it's
then the
not, it's
H8
not sitting where you're showing it then. It's actually going to sit in that 2-foot space to the right.
yeah, correct.
Okay,
We're
so
gonna go, we're basically,
drawn
we're gonna go
correctly.
in.
you're not drawn correctly. That's what you're saying. This is actually moving over into this space.
Yeah, so pretty much at that point, when we're dealing with code enforcement, and when we get to a point where we're putting in the outside unit, we have to make sure that we're within that 8-foot setback. So we do have a little cushion between the 2 foot. So yeah, it would be slightly inside of that 2 foot, unlike the drawing right there.
Okay.
So, and just for clarification, the foundation plan is not a survey and not of the property. It's just a foundation plan showing the layout of the house.
Yeah, Melanie, where do you see a site plan that shows the driveway on the right? I only see the one that shows the existing driveway on the left-hand side. Is there a different plan than what is in my packet here?
There should
It's
be.
the last
Sorry.
page in this packet.
Like the demolition pack.
Guess so.
There's one for the way the.
Oh, It's the packet with all of the specs.
Blue line, yeah, that you got it.
So that survey shows the hardscaping and the outdoor unit.
Oh, there it is. Really?
First off, I think your architect has done a good job with breaking up the plains exterior walls of the house so that the scale doesn't seem so large.
Thank you.
But taking into consideration the driveway you talked about and working with a site plan, I think he ought to go back, or she ought to go back to the drawing board and make some revisions, because you don't want to get the house, the foundation in, and then, oh my goodness, I cannot get a driveway on the side, or I can't get my HVAC unit on the side of the house where you want it. I think those things need to be worked out on paper and then go ahead with construction.
So that was the main reason for the extra survey that shows my kind of hand drawing of the walkways, the driveway, and the HVAC unit. On that survey that was just discovered, the unit is closer in. And, I was obviously myself with multiple measures, it was more like measure 5 times cut once. And so we are making sure where the plans are right now do fit. And that came with the sacrifice of a skinny driveway, which honestly will probably end up just parking in that first space, because the lots on Franklin Street, they all do have a slight angle to them.
I went there.
Okay, great. All right, you saw them.
So
But you could shift this house a foot to the left without a problem.
you could move your
And
HVAC
you have
back
plenty of
further
room.
towards the rear of the house.
You have 2 feet
Right.
6
Getting wide.
inches, and your HVAC unit would not be encroaching at that point. I mean, just to give yourself, it's 9 foot is the minimum width for a driveway, right?
House this way and not impact the location of the HVAC because it's back behind the bump out.
Right, and we'll still be in.
And you're still gonna be okay with the setback, because if the HVAC is behind that bump out,
Right.
you're just
And now
shifting
we
this over.
can't hear you.
So I'm just showing him on the survey, if he's, because the HVAC is on behind the bump out, if he shifts that, the HVAC should still be okay because the bump out is the issue. If the HVAC is again behind that second bump out on the side, he should be able to move that over.
All right, great. Yeah.
And you could, and depending on how, the mechanicals haven't been done yet, so you could actually slide it further back and your lot, spreads
Yeah.
out towards the rear, so you'd even have more room.
Right,
You
just
can see it just pies out.
from a mechanical standpoint, we just always figure the closer the outdoor unit to the indoor unit, the more efficient the whole system. That's why.
Well, that, I didn't know where the mechanicals, how they were laid out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's,
but if, and you're trying to get it as close as possible to the mechanicals
Right,
inside. Yeah, I get that. But maybe that can move too. Anyway, you've got some wiggle room there,
yeah, that'd be great. As long as it, if it doesn't require an additional submission, that would be appreciated. It's more like an approval with the condition.
Well, it's a code, that will be a code issue and that will be addressed,
Right.
with Joe and Janelle.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so
Me
you,
and Joe get along great.
yeah. So, yeah. So anyway, we're just trying to look from the design standpoint, from the H Park standpoint,
Right.
and looking for how to solve some of the problems.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate your comments because now a 10-foot driveway means I can just get my truck in there. So that will work.
Okay, where'd we leave off? George?
No, I already, we were down here.
Okay.
Michael.
Oh, actually, I had one more issue. Have you checked your coverage numbers? Are you okay on total impervious?
Yes, they're on the survey.
I'm sorry?
They're noted on the survey.
But it's not our purview,
not
Melanie.
ours.
That's up
Yep.
to those
You'll get
guys.
We'll
It's
double
not-
check and triple check before
Okay.
he gets a permit and he gets a CO if this
All
is
right.
approved.
Michael?
Yeah, I agree that this particular proposed structure is in harmony with the streetscape. But I have, in view, in sort of viewing the front side of the structure, and as Michael, as you indicated, the street basically is a combination of various types of houses. You've got bungalows, you've got Victorians, you've got colonials, and you've got vernacular Gothic revivals, what
Right.
have you.
Mhm.
And there just seems to be a lot going on. And this sort of is tied to the issue with the windows and the door, and you've added dental molding and what have you. And I'm just wondering whether, in keeping with the streetscape where the various houses are very, very well defined. You've got the bungalows and the Victorian, what have you, whether you might want to just focus on, one type of front presentation as opposed to
Yeah,
multiple.
yeah, I agree with what Michael's saying, and one of my questions was, what style is this house?
Right. Victorian aesthetic.
Foursquare and Federal
Victorian.
style
I
and
guess, Victor-
Yeah, I guess Victorian with a little bit of this and that.
well, you got, look at the porch,
Yeah, that's,
you got the
and at the
decorative.
windows, he's going to change the windows. I see what you're saying.
We see a lot of front porches on the street, and there is
Right.
one home at least with that L porch. With this. side
oh, the
porch.
L porches are very much, but L porches are farmhouse, L porches are, a lot of different styles.
Right.
But I
right.
think it gets into the detail, and as they say, the devil's in the detail. And so you put too much gingerbread on a house that really doesn't want it, and then it's not sure what it is anymore. So you just have to kind of go back to your architect and, either simplify some things or change things around a bit.
I think-
We're not here to design for you,
Yeah,
although it sounds like it sometimes, but but I think the review process is, we're not clear about what period style this is supposed to be.
once he changes the windows, I think it'll be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that change you were talking about?
And did you consider
The double hung.
shutters? I think listening to what Barbara said, what style is this house? The windows, are they casement? Are they double hung? I think you need to decide what the house is going to be and then aim for it.
Right. So
I mean,
going-
again, the scale, there's a lot of house there, but because the different elements break down the size of the house, that's a good thing.
right.
But it's the style that's kind of here nor there.
So that was the goal with how the scale was broken down. So
I'm
that,
sorry, I can't hear you.
oh, sorry. So that was the goal with how the scale was broken down, to make it seem less of a broad structure
Right.
while
and-
still
And
fitting
that
within the
works, it
lines.
does.
And with your point on the windows, I'm completely fine with that. We know we're going to do the 6/6.
Double hung.
Correct. Double hung Anderson style window. We'll go with 400s. I believe that in combination with what we presented is suitable for the streetscape and what we've done. Another notion in the brochure that I noted that I thought was also a big, let's say, part of the rhythm of the street is the separate gables and the different style of roof pitches and the way that they face. And in the H Park brochure, it states that they encourage those different pitches, slopes, double gables, because that's how it would have been done back in the day, I guess.
What you find in the whole district.
Right. So that's where, after reviewing the brochure, contemplating with the streetscape, and it has been, hours and hours and hours with my architect going over little details and making sure that, we presented something where it would have been, a one shot. I would have been comfortable with it. It would be something that I would be comfortable moving into myself, knowing that it fits the streetscape and fits in historic Lewis, and that we were able to, start this process and the construction and, ultimately get rid of a structure as soon as possible while, people are here and visiting Lewis and seeing what's happening and, let it be shown what we're doing.
Has your architect been here?
The roof plan.
Yeah, he's been in Lewis. Yeah, he knows of the town. He's visited before. So he knows the importance of it. So whenever I talk to anyone, I tell them, look, we're dealing with the first city in the first state. So then, they perk up and they make sure to get the detail. So
I have a question. I don't think I saw a roof plan. You don't have a roof plan here, do you? That shows where, is there
It's the last page of the plan
of the
set.
big jobs?
Yep.
One thing. So when you talk about changing roof angles and things to reflect how buildings evolve in the town of Lewis, that evolution also explains how houses grow, which your roof plan doesn't identify. Your roof plan is just all these different angles, but all at one time. So historic structures in Lewis, the first rectangle will be built and then something will be added on and then another wing will come out perpendicular. And that's why the roof angles are different. They actually reflect the period and evolution of a structure. They're not just aesthetic, what I like to see.
right, which was not the case at all.
But I think that's what the roof plan looks like.
So going back to the roof plan and the evolution of homes through historic Lewis,
Mhm.
we see a lot of that on the specific street itself. So that's where we kept kind of going back to, we wanted more to fit in to the streetscape, being these different pitches, different roofs, double gables, if something were added at one point, and making sure that we fit in what the streetscape is right now. So that's really why we kept going back to this type of roof. And then also the addition was making the scale of the home fit the proportion, which, whenever I went over with anyone that was dealing with these plans, we read every time, height, proportion, scale, and rhythm. And that's why I have memorized, because so we just kept going back to it, because it is really important to me, especially, I'm my own neighbor. So I don't want this thing to look like an eyesore.
Yeah, I guess it's the front section, with all those different changes in the roof as I'm looking up on the screen at the roof plan. And it should be the same thing over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it just doesn't seem to be how the house would have been constructed with all those different change of direction on the roof. Anybody else want to comment on that? Contractor? Bill? You're good the way it is now? Okay, all right. Okay. All right, no other comments? Okay, so where do we stand?
Well, I have here that to change the front door. and I might suggest that, well, I think the motion would be to get a more historic appropriate door. And if you prefer, we could make that chair and staff review,
Okay.
And then I have the double hung windows be used throughout.
And there's 6/6 and
6/6.
Anderson 400.
Yeah, we'll go 400.
Is there anything else? No?
I'll try to put that together now. You ready?
Okay.
And
Any other
shifting the house?
I don't think are you going to shift, and that you're going to consider shifting, doing a site shift on the house?
Well, so if
That's-
that doesn't have to do with approval with
It doesn't, it
Okay,
doesn't.
all right,
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, I don't think that's
Then in-
part of our purview, but it's just was part of our discussion.
Right. In later time, if we could get approval from the city to do that, finding that it does work.
Yeah, I think
That-
that
yeah, that would
would
be
be
great.
Janelle and Joe, you can work that
Okay.
out. Yeah. Anything else that we? Okay,
Okay,
you ready, George?
All right, because the application concerns property that is addressed at 130 Franklin Avenue in Lewis, uses previously approved materials and conforms with the rhythm and scale requirements and is in the Lewis Historic District, I move that the application be approved with the following changes: that the front door be of a more historic significance to the street, subject to chair and staff review, and that the windows throughout are double hung 6x6 Anderson 400s.
Okay,
SDL.
SPL.
SDL.
SDL.
Divided by-
okay,
If I could get that
Slower,
in writing,
lower.
that'd be great.
Okay,
okay,
Let's make sure.
all right, have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, and we're gonna go around and say why we're voting how we're voting.
And again, if another commissioner had a basis that you liked, you were more than welcome to adopt it.
I appreciate that, you
Okay,
know?
and you made the motion, you get to vote.
All right,
first.
I'm going to vote in favor because I really like your plans with the changes that have been discussed. The only hang up I had was the door be more significant to the street. So I think you've got a good project and this is going to be a great improvement to the street.
Yeah, thank you.
And the city.
Appreciate it. I plan to impress with that door.
I think so.
Randy?
I adopt Commissioner Thompson's motion.
Okay, Bill?
I agree with Commissioner Thompson, and I think as far as rhythm and scale goes, it'll fit in better with all the other houses in the street.
I agree with the previous commissioner's statements.
Michael?
I don't vote to approve because I believe that it doesn't quite fit right now with the compatibility. The exterior design doesn't fit with the compatibility and arrangement of other houses on the street. I think there are just too many components, and it sort of throws the rhythm and scale off a little bit.
Okay. Bill?
I couldn't hear if it was a yes or a no.
That's a no.
I feel the same way, that we talked about enough items that I would really like you to come back and have the drawings changed so that there's no misunderstanding when we talk about windows and front door and property lines and driveways and HVA units, and that they all fit. So I do not vote yes. I vote no.
Okay. My big concern is the roof plan. I think it's very choppy and I don't think it shows how historic buildings are constructed here in the town. And, they actually tell a story, because buildings are built in sections. And I think there's too much going on the streetscape. But I think generally it certainly is a huge improvement to the existing house, but I just think there could be some additional improvement. So I'm going to vote no. But
That's 4 yes and 3 no.
Yeah, so
motion
it
carries.
still carries.
Okay. And, honestly, I'd be glad to discuss with you three and further
Okay.
and see with these plans what we could do to get your
If-
nose a little closer to a yes. I definitely anything you'd
Well,
like
we
to
can-
see.
But the only thing you have to do is come back with a door.
Right.
So,
And windows.
yes.
And
Anderson
windows.
I
400.
think
Double hung.
if you
That's what
want
you're required.
advice,
JP.
If
if
you,
you want advice,
yeah, if you want to do something further, get a hold of Joe, Janelle, and if you want to follow up with a, just a sidebar kind of conversation, we can
Right,
arrange
that'd be
that.
great. From a financial standpoint and a timetable standpoint, the approval today was very important, but
Good.
love to discuss in the future as well.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much and good luck.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, moving right along. Not too careful.
I've lost my agenda.
Your agenda.
It's here. It's up right there.
All right, so we have presentation and possible action to schedule a public hearing on a request of H-16-22 on behalf of Leanne Wilkinson and Aaron Hood for demolition of or relocation of the contributing accessory structures and building additions. Consideration of the installation of a new foundation, basement, windows, and the construction of a new two-story addition. The property is located 354 Pilot Town Road, Sussex County Tax Map 335-4, 19-83.00 R-2H. And who's coming up? Okay, all right, we'll need your name and address. You know the drill.
Leanne Wilkinson, 130 Jefferson Avenue, Lewis. And Brenda Jones, 123 East Court.
All right, who's first?
I guess I'm going to start. I guess the first thing we have to talk about is there's a cement block garage that is on the back of the house that was detached at one point. I think everybody's got a survey, original survey. So it was detached from the house. It sits behind the house. The current owner, which she purchased this house in 1996, connected kind of a shed from the house to the garage. The garage, unfortunately, is in very bad condition. It has a hole in the roof, and it sits over my neighbor to be's property line by about a foot or so, maybe a little more. So I want to get rid of that garage. That's the first thing. And because you can't see it from the street and because it's just a cement block garage, and I do realize that it was built before whatever the 1940, whatever it is, it doesn't seem like it's got a lot of historical value to it. The doors on it, those sliding doors, I would like to keep and use somewhere. I don't think we put that in the application.
You
Did we?
did.
It is.
You did.
Okay.
You did.
So we did?
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
Okay, so, yeah, I want to keep the doors, but the garage, especially because it sits on the neighbor's property, I can't really go over there and work on it, and I don't think they want it on their property, and it's pretty ugly, especially on that side. And they've got a really nice house next door. So I want to take that off, and obviously that's gonna, and the additions between that and the house were just built since 1996, and they're just kind of like a shed type area. But that'll let me add and you have what I want to add on, my additions. The other structure that you're seeing sort of in the middle of the lot is also was a cement block garage. And at some point, well, I know when, Rob Gibbs's family lived here, if anybody remembers the Gibbs paint store and Mr. and Mrs. Gibbs. They bought this house in 1960. I guess shortly thereafter, Rob's grandparents needed to move down to Delaware with their kids. So they took the garage that was in the middle of the property and they added several rooms around it and turned it into a dwelling unit. So it now has a kitchen, a bathroom, a bedroom, and a living room. So I it's again, not in good condition at all. But if I could, I have two choices here. I would like to either, once again, get rid of it. The additions around it were not historic and the garage was a cement block garage again. I would like to get rid of it, or if that's not possible, move it to the back left. Is that what we're doing? Back over this way.
Right.
Yeah, if you're facing it to the right in the back, yeah. So that's what I think that's the first thing we have to talk about. And then Barbara said, potentially you would look at the rest of the drawing, even though we have to go to the public hearing, which I know is August the 4th, to decide on that stuff, that you would look at this other part of it and potentially give me some suggestions.
Yeah.
So I'm not blindsided after the next thing,
Okay.
if possible.
So I think first thank you very much. You gave clarity to what this is all about. And so we need a motion to set a public hearing for next month. And so I need a motion for that?
So move.
So move. Okay, second, you don't need a
Second.
motion, right? We
You don't
don't.
need a reason, just you guys do need to vote though.
Okay. So we're going to vote to have the hearing.
Yes, to set a
Okay.
public hearing on the demolition
Okay,
or
so
removal.
Randy made a motion, you seconded it
It'll be prior
And
to,
all-
it'll be prior to our.
prior to our.
Monthly
yeah.
meeting.
So it would be at 6 PM because
Right.
you have to actually put a date, a
Okay,
time
so-
with that, and then the meeting could just immediately
Right,
follow
okay.
Right.
that, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that is.
That's
So I just
Okay.
need everybody to vote in agreement on that.
I just have one question. Has it been established that the garage, which is encroaching, and the guest house are
contributing.
contributing?
Yes,
Okay,
Yes.
all right,
Yes.
the surveys indicate that.
okay.
Okay, so all in favor of.
Can I make a
Oh,
comment too?
yes, sure.
On the garage part, of course, it's not visible to us.
No, it's
Right.
not.
It's none,
So
well,
is that something we could just exclude and they can just demolish that?
No,
It'd still
It's
be a-
the-
it'd still
it's
be a public
contributing.
hearing.
Contributing, we
yeah,
gotta go.
because it's
Yeah.
contributing.
Okay.
We still got.
Okay.
So
Just a
all
question.
those in favor of setting a hearing for next
Aye.
month?
Aye.
6 o'clock, aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? No, okay. Okay, so now
I
you,
just have one more question.
sure.
It seems that the guest house is identified as 356 Pilot Town Road.
It has its own address.
So, but this is one lot, one
We
lot,
don't-
one
we don't
parcel.
know why, but
Oh,
it's-
okay.
It's had its own address and people have been living there since the Gibbses, since Rob Gibbs' grandparents lived there,
Right.
starting in 1964, 62, 65. He can't remember exactly when they moved here.
Right.
but His parents bought the house in 1960.
What's the neighbor to the right's address then? Does it go 54,
58.
56,
It- it
50?
must be-
58.
No, wait,
No.
yeah, it's 50,
Yeah.
58, because then Mariah and Sam's is 60, so, yeah, so.
This was the
it's
only
not its
house.
own address. I don't know the answer to, I
Why?
don't think it was ever two lots, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, if you look back in 19,
In the Sanborns, it
Sanborn
doesn't,
maps, it
yeah.
was just one parcel.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's always been on parcel.
Mhm.
crazy.
Audrey
wonder-
Hudson must have changed all the numbers.
Maybe it's just for the 911.
Right.
To find somebody or whatever, I don't
I
know.
yeah, I don't know. Okay, so then your request next month is
Mhm.
going to be for demolition of the garage, the attachment to the original house, which was
Right.
much later, and also the separate garage, et cetera, whatever you call that space.
Mhm.
Now, a living space.
Yeah.
To demolish that. Okay,
And I mean, we have pictures, I think, in there. I mean, if anybody wants to go and look at this,
Mhm.
I will be happy. You can't just go because there's still people renting this house. It's
Oh.
a rental.
I went
So-
up the driveway today.
Okay. Yeah, and then the neighbors next door don't want you walking in their driveway, but you can walk around the back. But I need to know if anybody wants to go look at it because I don't want to upset these people that are staying there.
But there are some really good
I don't
pictures in
need
the
to- yeah, there-
packet.
no, I think the pictures are very
Very
adequate.
thorough.
Okay.
They're very thorough.
I think they're
I
very,
agree.
they're very good. Yeah, no, they're very good pictures. So let's let's see, do you want to ask anything specific at this time of us or?
Madam Chair, I'm just going back to FOIA, the public hearing and scheduling it was the only thing that was on the agenda. And so I just want to make sure.
No. Really?
Yeah.
Presentation,
It
says
says
presentation, possible action,
To
schedule a
schedule
public
a public
on
hearing.
request, relocation, consideration of the installation of a new foundation, basement, windows, the construction of a new two-story addition. The property is located at 354 Pilot Town Road. All that's on here.
That's what you're scheduling for. Yes, the public hearing for
Oh,
demolition.
Really?
Yes. They
I-
need to, in order to submit a application for demolition, there always has to be a plan that's submitted with the demolition. So that's why you would submit them at the same time.
I interpreted this to mean that everything was being submitted because as it has been submitted to us. And so because it's submitted to us at this time, and all we do is schedule the demo, but we can review this
You can
and,
make like macro comments, right?
yeah, that's, I mean, I
It
think.
really saves time because they come back
Hey.
and then we have a whole bunch of issues. Then they got to come back a third month.
And I understand that. I'm just giving you my legal advice
Okay,
and my
okay.
interpretation.
Janelle, how do you interpret this? Because it does list the whole.
I'm not going against the attorney. I'm not getting into that one. But I do understand where you're coming from, but we do
And-
try to put the entire application so everybody knows it's not just a demolition, but there is plans for other
Yeah,
things.
I think, and in the past, we have, when people
yeah.
have asked, especially if, depending on which way the application might go, hinges on how receptive we may be to one thing or another, or
Yeah.
if there's some area that, the applicant or the designer is concerned about. We have made comments, but I understand if you don't feel comfortable doing that. Although this application seems very, very thorough.
It is, because we did think that you were going to, we didn't think you were going to approve anything tonight. We thought you were going to look at it tonight and give us some direction, because as the guy that was just up here said, time is very important right now
I know.
with contractors and getting things going, and not because that's anybody else's problem but mine, but I need to get going.
It's Aaron's.
And Aaron's, yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what we have done in the past, and maybe Janelle and I can talk about this another time, or Joe. I know in the past, we have had something like a chair and staff when people have asked a question such as, is my application complete? Are there other things you need to see, or something like that? So,
Yes, the code does allow for the chair to meet with the applicant to go over a few things. It's just, I believe, as Brian has mentioned in previous meetings, it's the chair and then, staff can meet with the applicant to have discussions.
So when you come back in August, it's like we talked about it tonight, but we didn't. So
Barbara-
we get with her and then we're good to go in August.
You're right. From a macro standpoint, I've made comments in the past.
yeah,
And I'm very careful what the attorney is saying here. I'm listening. Yes, he's our guy.
well, and
But things like I would say,
Mhm.
is that, when
What
you're
would you
putting an
say?
addition onto property, when you're putting an addition there,
Yeah.
and I think I see it in the drawing, it's below the height of the original.
And
Those
that's
are
good.
things we're looking for, and that's very good.
good.
Okay.
We tried, all three of us tried really hard to
Yeah.
make sure that you guys knew we are not changing that original house. And we
Yeah.
went by the guidelines. We don't want you to say no. We want you to say
Right.
yes.
And,
So we tried to do it just like we thought you would want us to do it.
Yes.
and you're,
And with your,
And- and you're
Sail
basic-
right
you're ba-
through in August.
and
with your
you're basi-
windows,
and you're-
keep
you're
your
ba-
windows.
and you basically done a terrific job in restoring parts of the original structure that
Yeah.
need to be repointed, and
Yeah.
shakes that need to be
Mhm.
replaced, and
Yeah.
roofing
Yeah.
materials that need to be
The house
replaced.
has not had much done to it. in a
No,
long
no.
time,
And-
And it needs it, and
Yeah.
pretty desperately.
Most importantly, it needs a foundation,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's going to be an undertaking in
Yeah.
itself.
And we have those guys lined up for September.
Okay, let me
Right.
ask you a question. Okay, that's a maintenance project. Janelle? maintenance, they need to redo the foundation of the existing house.
But we gotta lift up the house, so.
But typically, it's part of the application, but if they want to withdraw a specific part of the application, I think they could do that, say withdrawing the foundation, and then we could send that to chair and staff, and that could get reviewed if it's under $50,000. Because otherwise it
No.
can't. That's the best I can come up with.
Okay, well, we're 4 weeks away for the next meeting.
I mean,
Three, actually.
Hmm?
Three, actually.
Yeah.
It's three.
3
yeah,
weeks.
It's really quick. because
Yeah,
of this
yeah,
one's later,
because,
right?
yeah, we're 3 weeks away. So just keep everybody on schedule.
Keep everybody on schedule. Okay.
All right, and I will submit also for Joe to add to your packet. We just got the survey that had all the heights of the houses next door, so.
Oh, good.
you can
Mhm. Good.
Have that as well.
Okay.
For next.
So the height is not changing
No,
The height on the original, on
and the
the
foundation,
54 will not change, that it will be lifted up, new foundation put in and drop back down.
what's the face material on the foundation?
It is brick.
Brick.
Yeah.
Real brick?
And then that house is 36.89 from the center line of the road. And the new portion of our addition is about 34.
So
The
the,
highest point up.
the height of the foundation that we see now, we will see when it becomes brick. It won't change in height.
No.
it's brick now, isn't it?
Okay.
It is.
It's brick
It's
now.
brick now,
But you-
but it's just not in good shape
And you can't see that really from the street because of the.
because of the porch. You're not really gonna see the foundation because of the porch. The parts that you're gonna see, you'll see will be brick.
With the things I wanted to know.
Okay, well, very good. Joe, do you want, they don't have to redo this whole application, so you want this turned back in?
Yeah, so it'd be easier this way. How about 8 copies when we come back next time? If you guys, it's up to you guys. You guys are happy with it. I'm happy.
Well, either, we're coming,
Yeah, if you wanna hold on.
I'll just hold on to it.
okay,
Yeah.
then you're each responsible for bringing it back.
Now and
I
then.
did.
Everybody's responsible for bringing it back.
We're printing it offline.
We can make more.
No, you don't have to make more. Okay, we'll see you and,
Yeah, that's fine. I'll make copies. I'll make sure. I appreciate it, Brent. Thank you.
all right, thank you very much. Appreciate your patience. And next we have presentation and possible action on H-17-22 on behalf of Beebe Healthcare for the exterior renovation of windows, doors, masonry, sign replacement, roof replacement, and painting for a contributing structure, Shaw Building. The property is located at 424 Savannah Road, Sussex County Tax Map 335-8.11-40.00 CFHC, 424 Savannah Road. And how are you?
Very well. How are you?
Good.
Thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Carl Creenan with ABHA Architects.
Mhm.
We're the architect representing Beebe Hospital on the revitalization of the facade. There are also interior renovations that are planned separate from this project, but we're here tonight to speak about the facade rehabilitation as well. So I'd be happy to take any questions
Well,
on the application.
I was, if you wanted to give his presentation and explain what he was doing, if you.
Yeah. Yeah,
before you
I
had
think-
questions.
Okay.
before we have, yes, if
Sure,
you just
sure.
give it kind of an overview. I know a couple of us met, sort of a pre-meeting that was requested by Beebe. And so if you just want to kind of, what will the
Sure.
building look like when it's all done? Kind of a summary without getting too far into the weeds.
Sure. I think the intent of Beebe is to really refurbish it to its original luster as much as possible. There were some more recent additions that have become pretty established, but the simplicity of it, they'd like to maintain and really bring back to life. Specifically, starting with the masonry, it has a very unique sculpted block that was original block. So However, it's become damaged in some areas, particularly with foundation failures and other water intrusion failures. So there's significant cracking. So the intent there is to repair the damage and replace sample or some of the blocks. And I do actually have a sample of what we're proposing, which was shown, I think, to some of the group when we toured there. It's patching it, but the intent is to patch it to make sure it matches nicely along with the repair. Just kind of following what was in the booklet. There are precast headers over most of the windows and sills. Those will be maintained. The roof is a mix of asphalt shingles and single ply roof on the back that you don't see. But what the intent is to replace with a continuous PVC roofing. Although you might see in the renderings, the part that faces the street, which is the main porch area and the wings, the intent there is to use it's a PVC roof, but there are PVC ribs that will give the feel of a standing seam roof. We've done it at other historic structures around the state, and it's held up very well. Gives a good, we feel a good, solid and durable finish with some authenticity, even though it is a PVC project.
And the color is,
Well, that's open for discussion, but we're proposing actually to use the patina green there.
which was original?
It was not necessarily original. We have had a hard time finding anything that really shows or documents what the actual very original in 1921 building was.
The roof
it
was
would-
never terracotta, was it?
I don't believe so. And again, from postcard views or photograph views, first off, it's hard to see in reality. And in reality, even walking down the street, it's pretty low slope. So we thought it might be nice to actually give it a little pop so it gives a little more presence. Is it historic? Not necessarily, but we think it would be an appropriate nod to what could have been there, but we don't actually think it was.
Actually, in that upper left photograph, it has a green
It
sort
does.
of look through the trees.
It does.
Could have
I
been
don't know if
painted by
we
somebody.
could go off that, but we kind of did because that's exactly the exact impression that we had too. It's like, wow, could have been green. That might be nice to do that, but we don't want to give the impression that we believe it was a green patina standing seam roof. I do not think it was terracotta. Nothing, anything even looks close to
Or
that.
copper
Perhaps, yeah, perhaps it's
that turned green.
Oh, yeah.
Perhaps. So, and again, I can come back to any specifics of that, but continuing on, the windows will be replaced on the whole Shaw building, all sides, with aluminum clad wood Marvin type window. For point of reference, it's similar. We have samples here, but it was also what was done at the renovation to the Lewis School down the street as well. Similar section, although we are doing an aluminum profile to try to replicate what exists now. Also a question there, and you'll see in some of the renderings, we're proposing that I think the preference would be the green window trim, which actually was for a long period of time the actual trim around the windows being green. It's a little bit of a darker green, but there are also images of it done with different colors over time. So, but we're proposing to actually use the green trim, which I think is in the rendering. That's a little bit further into the presentation. Also, the wood doors will be replaced with a 2¼ inch, again, aluminum clad Marvin windows, full lights with the divided grids to mimic what was original. The fire escape is an interesting point. It technically is still needed for egress from the building. There's the interior renovations that are happening do not include changing that. So the intent is that it would remain, although it will need to be removed temporarily because it's led to some damage to the block behind it. So the intent is to remove it clean it. What's the word for it? But clean all the rust and steel off of it and rust off of it, and then repaint it and reinstall it, because it's been there for so long that it almost feels historic as well. And there's actually been some discussion, even if in the future, if they replace it with a true fire steel inside, that they might want to just keep it, because I think people identify it. I kind of always do. So.
Do you ever think of sanding down the layers of paint to see what the original color was?
On the stairwell?
No, we haven't. We certainly could do that. Yeah,
I mean, it is historic preservation.
it is. Yeah.
And then even on the siding, you can sand down the paint layers that have been put on over the years and find out what the original color was.
Yeah, we intend to do that when we get a little bit further into that on both of those. The original, I want to bring this up, the original block actually was unpainted, and it was more of a sandstone color. There are some good bit of documentation, but not for very long. We think certainly within the first 10 years, maybe even sooner, they painted it. And we would not propose to go back to that original, because
Thank you.
we feel there could be problems with that. And I think people certainly view that as being the white building, and I think it would really not be received well. And also just from a maintenance point of view too, how do you maintain that? And the difference, any difference in the patching of the block would really, I think, jump out if you tried to do that. So we're proposing painting.
Were you able to identify whether those blocks were made here locally over here on Chestnut Street for the little factory that?
That's what has always been said.
That's what.
I haven't confirmed that, but that's the rumor.
Right.
We've heard that multiple times.
Yeah.
I think that's in the booklet, the Beebe booklet that we were referring to, that they had done for their 100th anniversary. But yes, that's the assumption that they were with actually a high content of sand actually in it too. Fire escape. Metal railings will be replaced with more code compliant railings at those first few steps. The actual porch area, which is a very low concrete porch with brick trim, that will be it's also out of kilter, so that will be replaced in kind with similar detailing of brick as well. All of the wood trim work will be sanded, patched, repaired, but an aluminum gutter which with a profile that more matches the existing will be replaced just at the very, very top leading edge of the upper cornices. Again, that will be aluminum, but sort of tied to the detailing. Similarly with the fascia, the columns, all of the woodwork, again, stripped, sanded, painted, and repaired, patching. It's in relatively good shape. It's held up pretty well, but does need some attention. Replacement of the two lights on the front part, and then also there are recessed cans in the ceiling of the porch, and those will replace with LED lights. And lastly, the lettering. The lettering will be placed. It's replaced with metal, pre-finished metal to again match the color and the look of those, and reapplied. Same. The intent is replacing kind with same lettering, same name, reference to the name for the shawls. Any more detailed?
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I would go back to the fourth floor. I didn't understand. I did go by the building a couple days ago. But I didn't pay attention to the porch floor. Are you going to make it exactly what was there before?
Yes, we are. It's out of level. It's like foundations failed a little bit, so it's uneven. So we're going to replace it in concrete with a brick border edge to it.
That's nice.
We're going to try to reuse the brick, but I don't know once they're popped out and how that will work.
Regarding the window arrangement, I know you're going to use the Marvin windows, but when you look at the windows under the entryway there, under the cornice, they are 6/6, I believe. But then to the right are a smaller set of windows. And your plans here, you're showing 6/6 again, but the originals are 4/4. And I'm wondering whether,
Okay.
if you,
They have a lot of different existing types of windows.
but that whole set on that side of the facing
Okay, I think
4th Street.
Somewhere was
They're 4 over
listed.
4. And I think they're like a casement maybe as opposed to a double hung. I'm not sure.
Not on the front, right? On the
Yeah, no, on the right-hand side.
right-hand side. Yes, yes. So some of them will be,
Where the air conditioner is.
will be a jalousie type looking window. I think there's in the details. Page 602 on the fold out
I'm looking at A003.
would be this one. Pictures of the existing.
Okay.
The one you're referring to.
Yeah, no, I'm referring to the ones on this side of the,
Okay, actually on the front.
yeah, on the
side.
front.
Do those jalousie windows match what's there or what was originally there?
The profile, well, they won't be true jalousie windows, but they'll be the
I think they have like 4 different kinds of windows,
yeah,
4 or
yeah.
5, I forget the
Yeah.
number, different kinds of windows that are existing as the building grew,
I'll
evolved.
take a closer look
Yeah.
to make sure that those, because you're right, they were a little skinny
They
for
are-
6
right,
over
and
6.
It seems like
Those are
6 over 6 are going to be
Yeah.
kind of, it's going to be kind
the-
of
Yeah,
tight.
I thought that they were
Yeah.
4 over. I mean, I thought they were originally that, but we will
Yeah,
check that. And if
okay.
that's not the case, we will
Okay.
correct that.
It's an important building
Yeah, it's-
and it's
yeah.
important to restore it
Yeah.
historically.
Yeah.
We hope we're accomplishing that. We
No, I-
completely agree. It's very important
Yeah.
to BB. It's very important to the donor that is supporting this project, that this be done appropriately. These are actually preliminary documents
Yeah.
to make sure that we got, good direction from this committee first before we actually move into the formal documentation and before they actually can secure the funding. They wanted to make sure that we got this done before they would even support it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's the intent to support,
Mhm.
but not the official support until.
Not only is the building important to us all, the hospital is. I mean, it has been to me, so.
I think it's been to almost everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
In your submission package, the one thing that confused me, and maybe it's all the Series 3 block, but you show all these other blocks that don't indicate everything is going to be a reproduction of a BB block.
Yes,
Correct.
that is stock sizing information.
Okay.
Just say they have the ability to do that, but yes.
And they will make the cut face replication in any of those dimensions that you require for the
They will.
project.
They will.
But the new block is only going in where you have to repair and replace.
Right.
Yes, right.
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 Otherwise, it will be existing
Existing
block
block,
where it
And restore what's
hasn't
there.
cracked or.
Yeah.
Yeah,
other
and so
issues.
also some of that also is on the back of the building where we're infilling some windows
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
they put in mechanical units through windows, so we're repairing them. So there's a lot of repair work, particularly on the back. So that's why there's addition. Now, we won't use all of those profiles, but that would just say that they have that, the ability to do that. But yes, there will not be any flush block. It will have the pattern to it.
So the other question I have is, this Sika product that, what is you've used it on other projects?
Yeah, particularly the Bellevue Mansion,
Okay.
which is in Wilmington,
Yep.
one of the state parks
Familiar
there,
with
event center. Yellow building, but it has that type of roof, and we did that 20.
Did you bring
Over
a
20 years ago.
sample? Did you bring a sample of
yeah,
that? Oh,
sample.
good. This is really interesting to see. We saw this. I think everybody'd be interested in seeing this if you wanted to pass it around.
There's the block as well.
Block?
So that shows how the attachment actually happens. This is actually the color that would be proposed.
Attached. Yeah.
Interesting.
So,
And it has a sheen to it said it kind of reality. Really,
This isn't, yeah, this isn't.
if you're on it, you know what it is, but if you're on the street.
This is the.
And
You want-
after,
You want to pass one of those down?
Yeah, sure.
The color doesn't.
Just wondered what it represented.
They'll be offers 20-some years, about 20.
The question we had asked when we saw this was whether you could crush the ridge. And whoever was with us, when
Stepped on it.
Michael, we stepped on it and they said it doesn't crush. And then I think there was somebody else there that had talked to the rep and said, no, this has been used many locations and it doesn't crush.
Doesn't.
Which means it might even be considered an alternate for metal roofing.
Right.
doubt anybody read.
This look like.
It is pricey. It's
much more-
not copper, but it's.
Much more expensive than the metal roofing.
Oh, no, it's actually not. It's more reasonable, but we're putting PVC on that entire roof area too. A lot of it that you won't see.
Mhm,
So it's sort of a continuation of that too.
mhm. Mhm. Did anyone want to see the BB block material?
I see it.
You see it?
Randy was like, this is.
No, I've used them before. My only concern with them is that, I mean, they did a great job on Franklin Avenue to replicate those blocks of the house that's built on Franklin. But there was nobody out there who actually it's a very unique face.
It is. Yeah.
It is not something that can be, that is readily replicated by any existing manufacturer. And when you start, and I owned a house that was BB block, so I'm pretty familiar with this. And mine was still the sand until I painted it in 2012. It had never
Really?
been painted, not since 1918.
Wow.
It was built just prior to the hospital. And when there's a distinct difference in the facing on that. The house on Franklin Avenue, when they did theirs, they fell into the homeowner, Glenn Thompson, when he was putting the additions on, was very concerned about it because when the mason first presented it to him, he said, that's not a duplication. And they had them cast. They had a mold made that actually cast a true face because it doesn't have all those ridges on it. It's much more irregular than what that is. It's more rolled. So
that is a possibility.
Your donor should be prepared that they'll have to pay for a casting.
Yeah, we were hoping, giving that it's a little more piecemeal, that it could be, we're not replacing a whole wall section so that you would see it'd be more piecemeal, but
It will be, it'll not to interrupt you, but it'll stand out even more. Because it is so smooth and rounded and these pieces have those heavy ridges on them. All of them that we've seen and we had to do some on our own home and you can't, I'm sure you already know this.
Yeah.
But
And this company can do it.
Yep.
We'll do it.
They'll
Just don't
do
have
a
the
casting
price,
for
don't
it.
have the price yet.
It's a much different price.
Yeah, we actually, when Michael and I went out there with Joe to do, at BB's request, to do a site visit, we actually held that up against one of the blocks and close range, you can see it.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you'll see it from the street. But I don't know. Yeah, so. But anyone, did you have some more questions? No, any more questions?
Well,
Is the sign gonna-
probably the landscape is not within our purview, but
Yeah.
I would like to ask if there will be any change, because I look at the earlier postcards, and I really prefer it without those cherry trees in front.
I'm
Oh,
not at liberty
Oh,
to
yeah.
say that tonight. We're just talking about the thing. But I think there's some agreement to that too, but I can't officially speak. I'm not official, no.
Unofficially, I'm shocked. I love those trees, but I'm not allowed to say that.
Okay, and I didn't hear it.
You did-
I did.
I
Yeah.
don't know what the sign is gonna be.
Oh, the sign?
Oh, again, another thing that they're not prepared to. They will come back with the actual yard
And
sign.
where does it go? And
Yep,
that-
yep,
yeah.
yep. That
Site
they
location.
weren't ready to present that tonight. So,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready to make a motion. Is that
Are you
okay?
motion? Anybody have any other questions?
Yes, yes, I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
If I may, you're really going into great detail here and I really appreciate it. And I want to say this, that there's a lot of money spent in doing this. You can get a tax credit for all of this.
Mhm. Yep.
Are
They
you
can
aware of
bump
that?
back.
yes,
You
absolutely.
are.
And you have to take all photographs before you do any work. You have to get in touch with the state, jump through
Yep.
their hoops. You've
Yep.
already been down that road.
Yes.
Yeah.
yep,
Okay. Good luck.
that is a consideration,
Mhm.
Wonderful. Yep. Good
Okay.
job.
Good.
That's all I have.
Randy, any more questions, comments?
Ready for
No.
a motion?
Ready?
Okay, I think
Yeah,
Michael's gonna make a
I
motion.
move because this particular application is extremely sensitive to the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic preservation. Just on so many fronts, there are no changes that create a false sense of historical development. And you guys are really focusing on the fact that you're trying to repair deteriorated historic features rather than completely replace them. And you're trying to save as many of the distinctive materials and features and finishes as possible. I move to approve this application as submitted.
Okay. Okay, second, all right. And we're going to go ahead and everybody's going to give their comments as to why they're supporting or denying making their vote. And since you made the motion, you get to start.
Yeah, I move to approve based on the strong sensitivity to the Secretary of the Interior standards for historic preservation.
Melanie, you want to go next?
Yes, and I would also vote in favor for the reasons stated.
Okay,
I also vote in favor, holding that I would like to see the sign and where it goes.
You'll probably see me again. Short time.
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Maybe twice.
He'll be, see you again. He'll be back with all that.
Sign and landscaping are particular concerns for this. group.
Yeah. Randy?
I adopt the motion as stated.
Okay.
I do as well, and I appreciate the sensitivity you've given to this project.
George?
I vote yes for the previous comments made by the other commissioners.
Yeah, I vote yes as well. I think we all feel, and Beebe does too, fortunately, that it's a very important historic structure. It's been a significant part of the history of Lewis, and we really appreciate all the time and effort you're taking.
Great. Well, we appreciate those that showed up
Yeah.
last month to go through. That was very, very
Good,
helpful. And I would encourage you to do that for anybody that wants it. It really got us
very good. Well,
in the
thank you.
right direction.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah.
all.
Thank you very, very
Appreciate
much.
that. So it's passed.
Yes.
All right, so moving right along. We now finished all the application. Oh, no, we have one more.
One more.
Sorry. Oh, my God, scared you, didn't I? I was already turning the page. All right, we have C5, one more important presentation. Presentation and possible action on H-18-22 on behalf of Alan Joseph Roth and Michael Rogers for demolition of an existing non-conforming sunroom and add a single-story addition to the rear of the main house, contributing replacement of all windows, siding, and front porch railings. The property is located at 437 Kings Highway, Sussex County Tax Map 335-8.11-111.00 R4H, 437 Kings Highway. It's yours. Tell us what you want to do.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Alan Roth, and I'm here for myself and my husband, Michael Rogers, who unfortunately couldn't be here this evening, but I want to thank you for the opportunity to present tonight, and I'm going to turn it over to our architect, Brennan Bickle from Element Design Group. He'll make a presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have for me.
Great. Okay, and did you give your, you gave your name already, but you need to give your name.
Brennan Bickle with architect with Element Design Group here in Lewis.
Okay, very good.
The proposal is to remove the existing non-conforming structure and non-contributing structure that is a more recent addition. Then we would like to have an addition out the back. There are two additions, though. It's one that you can see and one that you cannot see. Most of the addition you cannot see is to the back, but there is part of the addition that is going to be the extension of the wraparound porch. So it should just blend right into it, and then it'll go into the addition toward the back.
Okay, I'm going to stop you here because I have a question. I know Janelle and I talked about this. Our guidelines are, we have two surveys. We have our older survey and our newer survey, and they both acknowledge the newer edition.
Okay.
But they describe the whole building, including the newer edition, as contributing. They don't designate the portion you're
Even with
talking
the
about.
maps and
But the two surveys, the older survey and the resurvey, they both describe that addition, and then they categorize it, both the building and the addition, as contributing. So my question,
Yeah, because it's attached to the main structure.
Right.
And the entire structure is defined as
Right.
contributing.
now the tax maps, the older tax maps don't show that.
Right.
So it's like we have a lack of clarity, and I just question whether or not we need to have a public hearing, since the two surveys.
What we have done in the past, Madam Chair, is when there is a question as to whether or not it is contributing or is not contributing, you guys have usually scheduled a public hearing in order to have that evidence presented. Now, if tonight the applicant has evidence that demonstrates that it's non-contributing, you may consider it. And if you guys make the determination after a proper vote that it's non-contributing, you can move forward with the application. Your procedure, I'll have to pull up the section in particular, but your procedure provides that if they can submit evidence that it's non-contributing, that it's truly a non-contributing structure, you may move forward with the application tonight. If there's a doubt, and this is my recommendation, if there is a doubt as to whether it's contributing or not, I would schedule it for a public hearing.
But what we have in the demolition section is, the beginning says demolition or removal. If the structure or any part thereof is deemed to be contributing and therefore has historic or architectural significance, no demolition or removal of the structure from the premises may take place until public hearing. Now, I interpret that to mean the whole structure. But then at the end, it says, if the structure is non-contributing, H Park may address the application for demolition or removal without a hearing. But then
Historic surveys.
the two surveys, go ahead, you want to read it,
Yeah,
Michael?
the historic survey, the most recent one it talks about a two-story gabled rear L extends southeast of the main block. Affixed to the northeast corner of the L is a one-story side gable addition with an exterior parge brick chimney. 437 Kings Highway is considered a contributing resource of the Lewis National Register Historic District.
But just because it says that it defines that as an addition, it doesn't say that it is part of the original contributing structure. The original structure, the Sanborn maps, which are the insurance maps that we use to identify what structures existed prior to, do not show those additions on there prior to the dates that we use. And they would have been on there. So go ahead.
And you're correct about that, Commissioner Burton. What I'm going to, because I think Commissioner Wider and Madam and the chair are correct. If you go to section 19758, it's section I, and it says demolition or removal. And it lists out the removal structure, the demolition structure, the process that you guys need to engage in. And the very first line, it says, if the structure or any part thereof is deemed to be contributing and therefore has historic and/or architectural significance, no demolition or removal of the structure from the premises may take place till after a public hearing. any part thereof is your qualifier. If any part of the structure is a contributing structure, then I think you are required to engage in a public hearing.
I'm
Now-
not disagreeing with that at all.
And again, if tonight there's evidence that demonstrates that this is not a non-contributing structure, you may move forward with the application, but there has to be some sort of testimony or evidentiary.
Well, it would be the Sanborn maps
Mhm.
because it doesn't show up. But this thing that's interesting is that our newest survey takes the outbuilding and separates it out and defines it and then says non-contributing. But yet the addition is lobbed in
With the
with
contributing
the,
structure.
yeah. So, and the earlier survey says the same thing. Yeah. So I think there's some flaws there in those two
Yes.
surveys. And so are you saying that we could decide that the Sanborn map could override these two surveys?
Well, let me read what your section says, and then I can give you my interpretation on that.
Because
Just-
that last sentence, though, you have to then fast forward to that very last sentence where they talk about non-contributing.
So what section 19758D1 says is if an applicant or a member of the public has information, evidence, or testimony that contradicts the current designation of contributing or non-contributing, or has information about the history or other information that could materially affect the decision-making process of the commission members, H Park shall consider that information, evidence, or testimony before addressing the application. So that's a long way of saying if there is evidence out there that could be submitted tonight that would contradict the current designation of this structure as a contributing structure, you should consider it prior to making your decision on whether to have a public hearing on the demolition of this part of the structure or not.
Would you consider the Sanborn maps that are also included in our packet that we already have as part of that, as that?
That is not my decision. That is something, I don't weigh evidence. I give you guys legal advice. You are the ones that would need to weigh that evidence and
Because we
make a
have
decision.
the Sanborn map from 31.
I
22?
believe that the Sanborn maps, the weight of the Sanborn maps outweighs a verbal description written by the
Human.
surveyors and the students who did the research. I mean, many of us served on the walking arounds and the writing downs of this information, right? And then we submitted it to all of the different students from the University of Delaware who were working on the teams with us, and they were supervised by their instructors and other people at the state level to write these surveys. But the map is consistently the same all the way up before, during, and after when our dates require that we say it's a contributing structure. So I would, I don't know whether I would attest to the other members of the commission that we can act on this application in its totality, because what this applicant is asking to remove is not based upon these Sanborn maps, which I think is more factual information and consistent, because there's also inconsistencies between the two surveys. Sanborn maps are consistent. The surveys have some inconsistencies. I would make a motion that we act upon this application based upon the information that's in the Sanborn maps and proceed to allow this client or this applicant to make their full.
I'll second that.
I agree. We've used this as our guide for many years.
And that you'd deem this addition as non-contributing. I just want to make, because I'm pretty sure.
I would feel comfortable with you guys having a formal motion deeming that addition is non-contributing. I think that would help clarify.
That's what it
That
was.
isn't that he would just did.
Oh,
So we got a
sorry.
motion and a
I didn't
second.
add the exact word. Yep, exactly. I make a motion that we proceed with the application because this is a non-contributing addition that is supported by the Sanborn maps
already did
dating
this.
up through
He has to see it again.
1940.
Second,
And
Janelle, can we get some air conditioning in here or something? It's just stuffy as all get out.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Do you need a?
I don't think we need a roll call.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Abstain.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Now,
I was ready to offer testimony.
Okay, all right. Now, uh, because of some of those inconsistencies, I talked to Janelle and Michael and I had a conversation, and we decided that it was best if we go through this.
Understood. No, thank you.
And because, just so it's on the record, and if anybody ever comes back and says, whoa, So anyway, so now we welcome your presentation and we can proceed.
Got you off track.
I know.
Let me say this. I'll help Brennan get back on track.
Okay.
But if I had to offer testimony, this is what I would have said. When my husband and I purchased this house from the prior owner, which we did last October, and we moved in January on, the day after the worst snowstorm we had last winter. It was 18 degrees and all the doors were open. We did it with the intention of having this house be our retirement home, and a place that we could age in place. But the main reason for our hiring element was, in order for us to be able to age in place, we need to be able to have the ability to live entirely on the first floor. And we can't do that right now. All of the bedrooms are on the second floor. They're very small bedrooms. We have a bed in one room and we have all of our furniture in another room. And the back bedroom is not suitable for both bed and furniture as well. What is designated in the plans that you see as the sunroom, which is this side structure, was built for reasons that we don't know, was built about 9 or 10 inches higher than the rest of the first floor. So there's a big step up from the kitchen to get into the sunroom. And we assume there's some other there's a foundation under it. We don't know exactly what's under it. I guess it's some kind of concrete foundation. But in the course of our discussions with Brennan and Doug and the other architect we worked with, Harrison at Element, it became evident that we were not going to be able to somehow or other flatten out that room and make it usable without essentially practically demolishing that room. And so the other issue there is that with that room on the side of the house, which was obviously built much later than the rest of the house, there's no other access that we have to get into the backyard. To be able to do any construction to add on to the back of the house, to be able to put the bedroom that we need on the back of the house. And so that's a roundabout way of explaining why that side room
has to go.
Designated as a sunroom had to go, but it was obviously added much later and in some bizarre way, a much different height than the rest of the house will.
Character of Lewis.
70s construction.
That's what it was. So, thank you very much.
Yes.
All right. Take it away.
No, so the intent is to have an addition toward the rear yard, and there's a portion that you can't see, but we want to tie it into the existing wraparound porch, and the other addition is all toward the back. In terms of the existing, we do want to replace the siding with, on the front, it'll be the required wood plank.
Oh.
But then.
Excuse me, Barbara. It's Jackie.
Yes.
Could I just ask Mr. Bickle to speak into the microphone?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is it on?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that good?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
Hi, Jackie.
All right. Let's see. So we're planning on the finish of the house be the plank siding, just lap siding, painted. But we recognize that since it is a contributing structure, technically does have to be wood on the front, but then we would like to do the fiber cement on the addition and back and sides and back.
So the wood's going to be the front and sides of the historic structure?
We were just planning on the front because that was what we understood to be the
How
requirement.
are you going to match that material with the side material?
We'll just, you mean the wood versus the cement?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
Huh?
That was my point earlier.
Right,
You
well.
can't.
I mean, that's where we would we're using fiber cement on the sides and the back, but from our understanding, that the wood only is required on the front. Right?
Yes, so yes, but also we would like it to look good.
Okay. Yep.
So now you could use the better profile that you talk about, the thicker profile all the time, Randy? You mention that all the time?
I just need you to come to the mic if you're going to provide testimony. Okay.
No, I was just confirming, we did it on a house in Madison, but I would have to confirm the profile. I don't know the side, on the side. I don't know what we changed to whenever we did it down the side.
And how did you make the outside joint with two
That would be
different
a corner
materials?
trim.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you're gonna do a corner trim, a vertical corner trim?
The drawing show corner boards.
Is there a vertical board at the corners? so
Yes,
that-
yes,
Yep.
it shows that on the drawing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, our intent would be to match the reveal. Now, whether it be the exact profile, I mean, we would have to look at that.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
okay. So everything on the front is gonna be wood?
Yeah,
Is that what
'cause
you're
we
saying?
want to remove the existing porch posts and put in like a square post,
Mhm.
and that would be painted wood. And also replace the railings, which neither are really historical. We want to, but other than that, we want to keep the overall look of the house, the roof, the exposed rafters.
What's the dimension of the square new columns?
We're calling for 6 by 6.
So Brennan, are you proposing you're gonna eliminate the bracket and the
Yes.
turn spindles, and they're gonna be square and square posts, square spindles, no brackets at
No
the tops of the posts,
Is
but
that,
maintaining the exposed rafter tails?
Yes, because I don't think the brackets would have been in this house. I don't think they would have been of the period.
Two
Mhm.
different things.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's not a Victorian house.
Mhm.
I do think that the columns are very thin looking.
Mhm.
They need to be a little more gutsy.
Yeah, we want to beef it. In the drawing that you see, the proposed renderings and drawings, those are 6" by 6".
Are the eaves, because that's a tall fascia board up there, are the eaves on the front of that house wrapped that were old exposed rafter tails as well? Have you ever looked, do you know? There's a lot of houses in Lewis that they just came in the 70s and wrapped it like a loaf of Stroman bread,
Right.
covered them up.
I do believe, because you can't see the rafters from below, like on the
Yeah,
upper
you
part.
Yeah, but it's a very tall and an angled, it has
Yeah.
a pitch back, which is unusual, there's, it's,
What we would like to do though on that is to put a gutter just to improve the,
I'm speaking to Mike, the house needs gutters. I mean, the rain pours off both roofs. There are no gutters, and I'm hoping that you'll approve those.
so on the upper part, we do want to kind of improve the flat look with at least the profile of a gutter. And all the windows we would like to replace with talking about the Anderson 400s with the simulated divided light. And those would be the 2/2 matching the existing 2/2s.
And the trim is?
The trim, we were hoping to keep some of it. I don't know if we'll be able to. I'll have to investigate because I heard the trim on the previous one. So if you would want to show you an exact profile on the front for what trim we're using, we can provide that. But right now we just have it picture framed.
And the windows are very important. And
Yep.
on this house, they are very important.
Understood,
And,
yes.
is there a window sill and an apron under the sill? And, what is going to end up being there?
Right.
The windows in this house are in awful
I'm
shape.
sorry?
The windows in this house are in terrible shape. They're really poor condition. The windows in this house are either broken or rotted or not working, or covered with storm windows that themselves are not working.
I wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't questioning the replacement of the windows. He
I
was
wasn't.
questioning about what are you going to do with the sash and the window trim?
Yeah.
What will it look like?
I wasn't kept questioning the window replacement at all.
Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah.
Just
Right,
what
and
in
that's
the
where
end is it going to look like?
Yep, and that's where we currently have it as it is existing, which is picture frame, but we can provide that detail if you would want to, see that. I mean, we don't have it in this packet though.
So is it just going to be a picture frame?
Currently, if we are
No,
able
what is
to
that what
save
you're
it.
going to, you're going to save the original?
That's what we have currently.
Is that historic?
I do not know that. And I would have to investigate the window trim.
Yeah. Do you think picture frame treatment
No,
sash would be, no, I don't think so.
no,
So maybe you
When
can do something more
with the sill. apron,
historically accurate
Yeah, we
and
can put
compatible with the period of the house.
Yep.
When I visited the site, the columns look really thin.
Yes.
And so I am glad to hear they're going to be 6 by 6. But, what's the capital going to be? And is there a base?
Yes. And,
All of
you know,
those
we are
things
proposing-
add to the character.
Yeah, no, we want the base and the capital like we're showing. We haven't showed details of the dimensions and stuff, but that we do propose both of those.
So you're going to do those details? I didn't see the,
I mean, we do in the elevations, we do have bases and capitals, but we didn't do a detailed section of them.
okay, it's a pretty
even-
small scale.
Yeah, well, they're made to be a little bigger printouts.
When you're thinking about what to do, all you need to do is drive through Lewis, looking at 4 columns. There
Yeah.
were some really good examples of really finely detailed columns that you can just copy.
Yes. But if you need a detailed section, more like 1.5 to 1, we can provide those too.
It could even be, it could be a hand
Or
draw,
just a
hand drawing to scale.
Okay.
I'm chuckling because I did exactly what Commissioner France suggested. I
Oh,
mean,
you did?
they suggested that I drive around Lewis and send them some suggestions. And so,
You did.
yeah,
That's great.
I mean.
Okay, good.
So you close your eyes and you.
We got a lot to
Very
work with.
good. All right, anything else you want to say before we send it around for questions?
Were there shutters on the house to begin with?
There were no shutters and they were difficult because you'll see the one on the right is way it's close to the side of the house. So we thought it better to leave that off.
Okay.
Let's see a chimney.
It's in the middle in the back, so you can't see it from the road really.
Right.
So are you ready for comments, Brennan, or are you?
I think we're, ready
So,
to answer questions.
so one of the things that, as you sat there and heard me talk about before, and it obviously comes up on this application, is about exterior siding materials. And a few months back, this body approved the LP smart siding for an entire exterior of a house, pretty significantly historic house in this town. And I think that there are other properties that we could use that has a deeper profile, as you well know, shows a shadow line. I think there are other products out there that could be used as well. You know, I mean, Nietzsche has products. Unfortunately, Artisan or Hardy stopped making their Artisan product. Why, I have no idea, because it was the best, most economical profile that existed. I guess that's my diatribe, but my question to you and your client is are you willing to consider using something on this house all the way around that has a deeper profile, that gives a true shadow line, like you would see on any historic house in Lewis that we haven't updated? Because as somebody else mentioned earlier, and I think maybe it was Bill, and in a conversation with Jack Vessels, one of my concerns, and I think one of the ways I got here, was I shot my mouth off about some of the products that get approved sometimes.
I think that's how I got here too.
Right? And then here I am on the body, but there are better ways to skin the cat that don't break the bank. And as many people have heard me say, if you can't afford the products that you need to put on the house to live in downtown Lewis, then you ought not have a house in downtown Lewis. That sounds very elitist, but that's what the value of downtown Lewis is. And we're shortly going to lose it all if we keep allowing checkerboard hardy plank to be put on houses on 2nd Street that's supposed to look like Cedar Shake, that doesn't even look at all like Cedar Shake. And we can go all over town and see all kinds of stuff like that. So my role on this body is to be the needle in the thorn in people's sides, both on the body and in the public, and say, let's do it better. That's my question. That's the only, other than that, I think the plan is great.
What was the
But if you
question?
do all, will you use a deeper profile siding?
Will you?
Will you on the entire, on all 3 sides? If you want to put a little teeny, if you want to save the money on one wall on the back of the house to put regular old thin hardy, go at it. But the rest of the house should be a profile. And I know we're dealing with a house here that when you dig down behind all of that asbestos siding, you're going to find some sort of siding that has a profile.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Doug.
We're talking non-natural.
I just need you at the mic.
Yes, non-natural. Doesn't need to be natural.
Right, so on the front. we're
LP
talking
siding
full-
was approved by this body. We approved it.
It was not approved for the front of the house.
Not for the front. No.
It was only approved for the new work that was being done, including the garage. What happened was that Joe was contacted. This is the Kings Highway, Washington Street
Marshall
house.
House.
And they were contacted, and it seemed that they were having trouble getting paint to stick to the old siding. And, you know, they went, Janelle, were you involved in that?
Nope.
That was quick. That was very quick.
But there's a great reason why we shouldn't use wood anymore, because you can't get paint to stick to it.
This is old wood. This,
On the front, you get the peel, you get this.
this is the old wood that was, this is the old wood that was there that had been painted. And my position is if you don't have the right painter and you're not using the right paint.
Let me comment.
Joe had something to say.
I'm-
Joe had something.
Well, gentlemen, the client,
Well, go ahead. I'm fortunate enough to have a vacation place up on Cape Cod. So I drove 10 hours to get here, which is why I'm happy it didn't put this off. Public hearing 3 weeks from now.
yes, yes.
The house is clapboard. we have to paint it on a regular basis. Now, the weather's a little different there than it is here, but first of all, I came into this never having heard of this product that Commissioner Burton is talking about. So I have no idea what the price differential between this and hardy board are. But we have to repaint our house up there on a regular basis. Sometimes it's every 4 years, sometimes it's every 5 years, sometimes it's every 3 years, but it does have to be repainted. And we use a good painter, and we put a primer coat on, and we put 2 coats of paint on, and we use a good paint, but it does have to be repainted. The question that I have in connection with this is, if you have to put this product on 2 sides of the house, but then put wood on the front of the house, will you ever get a perfect match to the paint on the front of the house with the product on the sides of the house, particularly if you have to continuously, on an ongoing basis, repaint the front of the house, while the sides of the house over time, I assume, weather in some way.
I don't know the answer to that, but I tell you, I live on the beach, on the water, and in a condo that has cedar siding on it. And we do contract painting. And right now, we've had really good paint. And I think the last paint, we're coming up on 7 years. I think that's pretty good.
So let's assume 7 years is the time.
Cedar siding. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be cedar,
I know, but
based on the conversation I heard earlier. But let's assume 7 years.
Mhm.
The product on the side of the house that Commissioner Burton is talking about will not ever match a fresh coat of paint on the front.
So
of the
why wouldn't you do the front and the sides the same?
Still needs to be painted.
Is it?
But you don't have to scrape it. It doesn't peel. It doesn't check. It doesn't.
I don't know how, is the jury still out on that? How many years has that been around? I mean, we have, we're getting off topic here. Okay, so the.
I guess the,
But we're still putting 2 different materials on the same house.
They don't have to, they can put it on the same thing they put on the front, they can put on the side.
now you want me to put wood on both sides of the house.
That's what most people do. I mean, you drive around Lewis and, you know, people that have cedar siding, that's cedar shakes, that's what they do. I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that?
You're proposing lap siding, not cedar shakes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the sheer on
The cost of this project.
on the front.
And so
we're-
you don't
we're
think that,
doing-
you don't think the corner boards are going to sort of camouflage that? It's going to be, you know, you're not going to see them side by side. Or won't it?
No, like, to meet the requirements set by the code,
Mhm.
we propose wood siding on the front,
Okay.
but it's not going to look like wood. It's going to be painted.
Mhm.
And then down the back, we propose fiber cement siding that will be painted exactly like the front to match.
Mhm.
Now, if the profile is different, I can't help that. But that's to match the code, what's in the code. Now, if there's an option where we can start to consider synthetic materials on the whole house, we will consider it. Because I agree, I think that would be, especially when you were talking about lap siding, instead of, now if it's natural shake, I could see, you know, going down the side, but here we're talking, this is painted siding.
Hmm. Okay.
I guess I'm reading, I guess the code says something that I'm
Well,
unfamiliar with.
I mean,
Because it does say on the front.
yes, it does. I guess we find, you know, that most designers and architects don't like that idea, so they put the wood.
Right, but it's a
panels.
lot of siding on sides of houses you don't actually see. It's like goes way back and it's right up against another house. So it's like,
One side of this house is almost completely invisible from the street.
If we propose to leave it the asbestos, can we talk about the addition or
You can leave it asbestos.
we?
You can paint it and leave it asbestos.
And then we'd
Are
have
you
to come
changing,
back- we'd
are you
have to come
changing
back
doors
later
and
for the-
windows? You're changing all the doors and windows though.
Right.
Yeah. Wouldn't you rather not have the asbestos?
No, I'm just saying that's what you're allowed. I don't want asbestos.
No,
You don't
I
want
just don't want the
asbestos.
hang- I
I'm
guess I just didn't want the hang up to be the side.
I mean, it's not a hang up. It was a request. If you would consider doing something different, because it just, it's not going to match. It's not going to match. When this house is completely redone on the outside, you're going to have competing finishes. And I understand that that's what the code says. And it's confusing. So I'll make a motion then that we approve the plans as drawn, because I don't see anything else wrong with the plans. I mean, everything else is within keeping with
No,
our.
I don't think we, well,
can
yes,
make
except I don't think we've finished having some conversation yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a little hung up on the siding. I mean, it says natural materials matching or substantially similar to the original siding shall be used on the front elevations of contributing structures. But your materials are asbestos. We don't want to match that. Yeah.
Which we're proposing to replace with wood.
Yes, I know. I don't know. I'll tell you, I know it's getting a little late in the day to beat this horse anymore, but I want to move, I want to just skip past that right now. I mean, everything else.
And we'll look into what you're talking about.
Okay. And so, but I think a couple of the commissioners have some other questions outside of this. So, I'm just gonna,
Some comments.
okay, good. We'll start.
We just have a couple, right?
Good. I'm glad.
Okay, I'd like to jog to the addition part.
Mhm.
I'm looking at A301. To help me here.
A 301 or 201?
A301. A301 in the back where it shows those. Talk to me a little bit about that. Those windows and that roof line. Those windows, now, I guess I won't see that.
Yeah, let me pause here,
Yeah.
because if you look at this and you take a sheet of paper, anything else you have, and you line it up the way we always line it up from the corner of the front property line to where you can see the deck. You can see the deck. The deck has a roof on it, is that right? Deck, we can't see, can we see through the deck? It's flat. Okay, so you can see through the deck. It's just flat. You can see through the deck, and then you can catch the
Yeah,
left-hand side of the new addition. You'll see the whole side.
yeah.
If you go from the other corner, you can catch the side of that building too.
Yeah.
You're right there. So you can catch those two sides.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a lot. You don't see it real well, but I mean.
You
can.
don't see it well, but you will see it
Yeah.
from the
right.
street.
So my comments are,
Mhm.
you obviously want to preserve this and leave the house in character as much as you possibly can, whether it's the front or the sides or whatever. That design there in the back in that master bedroom, I guess is, when you look up and see there's 3 windows up there, that reminds me of something you'd see in a doctor's office. Okay, now let me continue on with comments. I'll just say that and let that settle in just a second. And then over there on the other side, which is now 302, where we see that decking, which we can see, that again is kind of out of character with this style house. Okay, I know you want a deck, but that's out of character. And then the other part that I'm a little uncomfortable with is those sliders. I mean, are you going to have dividers in those sliders? I mean, so they look like windows or something, or no? They look
No,
modern
we
to me.
intend to keep the historic structure historic and then do our addition that doesn't try to necessarily be historic, but
Yeah.
add on to it. And with the roof, Alan and Michael, they wanted more southern sun into their bedroom, and that was a way to get it. And we didn't see that there would be any way to see it from the street, Kings Highway. So we didn't see any reason to not.
That's, you said it, what I'm thinking is that the back addition part is not in keeping with what we've got in the front here. And you could easily do that, but that's not the way you've got it designed here. And for me to approve this, I've got to feel comfortable that I'm approving a design.
You can only approve, review and approve or deny something you can see from the street.
Okay, so we can see the deck. So the deck is, I'm not comfortable with the deck, right?
The deck is, what's wrong with the deck? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Well,
Because it's just.
You can't see the sliders and you can't see the offset roof with the clear
Right.
stories. You can't see that. You can only see a tiny bit of the side elevation. Just kind of a,
Okay, so what I'm saying is you're going to great pains to restore the house and keep it in a preservation mode. Yet, if, you're designing it here to be modern in the back, why are you doing that?
Preservation doesn't necessarily mean you add on exactly what the historic.
Not exactly,
structure
no,
is.
but if
Yeah.
you look at, back at the A301 again, see those windows now, Barbara, I'll back off, but I hear you, Barbara, I hear you, but, I can see that decking there, because I stood on the street and I looked very hard. And when,
You mean
and
the-
I thought, when you take out the sunroom, you'll see that decking there. And that decking to me says modern, 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 modern.
I
And the
think
rest
I'm
of this
unaware,
house
because
says,
the deck actually is intended to match the porch that's there. Like there's a detail to the front porch and we're trying to match that.
okay, but would you say that decking there matches the front porch area? No.
well,
That is the
it's,
intent.
but it's only,
It's
It's
only
only-
about the
Yeah.
deck, like,
yeah, it's just right off the ground,
yeah, it's
right?
on the ground. There's no like structure above.
There's no roof and there's no railing, there's no spindles. You don't have to because
No,
of
it's really
code.
close to the grade.
It's like under 18 inches or 12 inches, whatever it is. Yeah.
And you see it
The
from the
deck-
street.
I'm not sure you can see it from the street. I mean, it's going to be, the street is over
It's
here.
actually behind the porch. If you look,
Well, yeah, actually, this is the corner of the property, right?
it actually
Okay.
changes angles.
And so
it
you
actually
can
going
look down,
further.
you can.
You have a
you can
fence there
s-
too, don't you?
You don't count
At the end of the
fences.
driveway?
We don't count fences. Fences and trees, we don't count. But you can only see this tiny point, the left point, as you're looking at it in the plan. To the left of the table, you are going to see this much of it, Bill.
Right.
So based on that determination, from what I'm hearing, is then this addition then is beyond the purview of H Park. So the focus really should be on the exterior of the front and the sides and then whatever in the
You can-
windows.
Yeah, you can
I'm just
see,
trying to make sure
yes.
we're
no,
staying on.
Yes, no, that's right. From the other corner, you can see a little bit, but I don't know that you're going to see,
So basically, we're not really reviewing a new addition, right?
it's basically the addition is,
That's not going to go for our vote. the new
well,
addition, 'cause
no, I think it's
I don't
not.
have to live with that.
But I think your comments are well taken, and I was going to say something similar, that, would it be viewable? We would deny it, and we would ask you to do an addition that was compatible to the historic structure. Doesn't have to look like it was built at the same, we don't want it to look like it was built at the same time. We just want it to be historically
Yeah.
compatible and respectful. And that's what we would ask if we could review it, but we can't review it.
Just for consistency's sake, we had an application several months ago over on Mulberry Street where the same rule applied where
Exactly.
there was absolutely no,
And I
And
have
we
no
had the,
problem.
and then we had the same kind of conversation.
I have no problem with that. My brother-in-law is a pastor and he says, once you make a point, then back off. So I made my point, I back off. So then when we go to approve this though, we'll approve it without the addition
Right,
part.
right.
That's
To
right.
make that clear. And I'm okay with that.
Yep,
Mhm.
correct.
So we still have the little bit of dilemma about the siding. And if you want to withdraw the siding portion and give you time to look at it more, or you want to go ahead and put wood on the front and then decide what you're going to put on the side
Yes.
and make it as compatible as possible
Yeah.
and match the profiles as best you can,
Yes.
because Randy had said that there was a particular hardy board that has a better profile.
There are tons of composite material siding.
that
out
have a
there
better
that have
compatible
a deeper
profile.
profile.
So you're gonna buy some wood and you're gonna buy some hardy. And so it's up to you to make them as compatible as possible.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any more comments or questions? Okay. Does anybody dare to make a motion? Michael, go for
Sure. Because the structure, because this is a contributing structure, is in the Lewis Historic District. Shows general compatibility of the exterior. The front shows general compatibility of the exterior design and arrangement and texture, and materials used on the front are natural. I move to approve.
Second.
it. Okay. And we're gonna go around and make our vote and why we voted the way we're voting. Would you like to go first?
Yes, I agree. And
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
for-
supposed to let Michael vote first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah,
sorry. I'm
because
sorry,
it's a
the
contributing
person-
structure and it's in the Lewis Historic District. I move to approve.
Okay. That's your turn.
Okay. For the reasons previously stated, I concur.
Okay.
I agree to approve.
Okay.
I think your design will fit very well with the rest of the street.
Okay.
Since the original design is being preserved, I approve.
Randy?
I approve the plans for all reasons stated previously.
Okay, and I approve as well, and I thank you for your patience and your flexibility and good design.
Yeah. Thank you
Enjoy.
very much.
Okay, enjoy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take a little bathroom break.
Yes, go right ahead. Okay, we'll take a quick break.
Thanks, yeah.
For people to put multiple materials on the outside of their house, there will be less compatibility in 10 years.
Right.
So we move there and then.
Get natural wood materials on historic structures.
Yes. All right, we should move on to the next.
Yes.
I thought we were in recess.
Yeah, we were.
Polite recess.
Okay, so we have finished the applications. We are now going on to page number 2. And this is unfinished business, and this is going to be pretty quick. I have talked to regarding the resurvey and the different phases of that resurvey. I spoke to Kate at the University of Delaware, and they are still waiting for the grant approval from SHPO, which was supposed to have been the 1st of June. So, but what I asked, I called her because I wanted to make sure that this wasn't one of those items that just never got addressed. And as other work came up, I said, I know you'll always have more on your plate than you need to. I wanted to say, when will we actually get started? Because I think it's just a housekeeping thing for getting that grant. And they make the grant to SHPO on behalf of the city and H Park. And it just saves a step that gets even more complicated when we have to get involved in that. Now, we already have the city's money in this year's budget. So we already have our 15,000. And then Chad, this University of Delaware, they pick up the match required for the federal money that comes through the state, which is the State Historic Office. So, that's how it works. Now, I have just a little sidebar legal question for Brian. Okay, I was going to combine these in one item, but because they're called unfinished business, and I figured I had to repeat them as they were in previous, or somebody might tell me that I couldn't discuss it as unfinished business.
Are you referring to your H Park ordinance?
Unfinished business, D1, D2, and D3. Unfinished business.
Well, it's always good to break them out. That way it's clear on what you're discussing on the agenda. But
Okay,
I don't know how quickly you plan to
I'm
go
gonna-
through each of these.
Gonna guess D1 and D3 can be combined because it's just an update on the resurveys.
It's what it looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that definitely can be combined.
okay, I wouldn't be, okay, all right. Okay, well, you know how that crossing the Ts and dotting the Is goes, so, okay. So anyway, that's all I have to really report on that. And updating of the H Park ordinance for potential clarifications and changes. Every time we have a meeting, we discuss, throw out more and more items that should be addressed. So we actually have to make that sometime when we either have a special meeting or we know we have a really light agenda. We have to actually sit down and start to kind of clarifying those items.
Well, we could have spent 3 hours last month doing that because we had no meeting.
Oh, yeah, and you would want to come here and do that? Fat chance. And I think, Phil, were you going to make a comment on some things, when we talk about this ordinance, potential clarifications, changes and additions? You were concerned about demolition?
There are a couple things. One was architectural review should include the site plan and comment on not only driveways, but planted areas, but not the plant material. And the reason I bring this up is before moving here, I had licenses in 3 states. The architectural exam has one section on site planning that you have to pass, and I passed. But anyway, it is part of architecture, but the plant material is not. So I'm saying when we review something, we can review driveway locations, planting areas.
Some of the landscaping.
We don't review landscaping, we
Right.
use site planning, how the site is being used, where the driveway, walkway, patios, things like that are
Swimming
identified.
pools,
as
But
part of-
not
tennis courts. What?
No,
Not beds.
No, well, they can be designated as planted area, but we don't address the type of plants or the type of trees.
Well, of course not, but.
And so I think we should remember that when we're reviewing site plans.
Okay, and then you also wanted to say something about demolition?
Yes, I know this is supposed to be my last meeting. You know what, guys? I really enjoy these meetings. I may sit here and be quiet, but I
Well, you keep
enjoy them.
resigning, you know that. You
What?
keep resigning.
I
So-
know,
So.
I know,
Yeah, I can't.
Because I'm 84, I can't drive at night. My wife is here to drive me home because I can't see in the dark.
Okay, I know.
But I wanted to put together something that defines how you determine a historic house gets torn down, not just a view from the street, like the house that was torn down on, what was the name of the street?
Ship Carpenter.
Park
I
Avenue.
mean.
Park Avenue.
Park
that was
Avenue.
Okay.
And it was explained that it was it was torn down because it was determined it needed to be torn down by a view from the street. There's a foundation to look at, there's walls to look at, there are floor joists, ceiling joists to look at. I've done a lot of that in the past with an ice pick. You go in and you see if the ice pick goes through the stud or the floor joist. You can determine a lot. I did get permission to walk on that property, and I took with me a level, and I held the level against the four corners of the house. They were all absolutely plumb. There was nothing out of plumb. So I thought we need to have something written that says this is what has to happen in order to determine a house has to be torn down. I mean, I know the front of that house needed new siding. It had a hole in the roof. I heard that the hole in the roof had been there for a long time. I walked around the back, and you know what? The back, you didn't have to go inside. The addition in the back of the house should have been torn down, but not the main body of the house. So I thought I could put something, put something together that we can base the determination on a historic house and whether it's beyond repair or if it's still in good enough shape to keep it.
Okay, thank you. And this actually would be good to have, because the city, I think they've only had one meeting as far as I know, which was with Phil and Carolyn and Anne Marie. And it was discussing at-risk buildings in the historic district. And they talked about procedures and I guess guidelines, but I don't know if it ever has gone anywhere or was a one meeting done or what. But I think if as H Park, if we had some pointers or guidelines or something, that would give some teeth to, if there is such a thing as an at-risk committee still in existence or active or whatever. And I think that would also be good, Janelle, if you could maybe.
Yeah, it was just a meeting to discuss if we should be looking at a process, and it was, we definitely need to look at a process. I do know we get calls about certain properties, because right now we are on E1, just keeping Brian, so we know we're still on topic about the at-risk. And we do have a working kind of list. And I know John's reached out and Jove reached out to property owners to going, okay, I know I've gotten phone calls. It's like, what's going on? What do you need? What are you planning on doing? And it's like, yep, we know, the next couple of months we're working on, right now talking to a contractor. So it's like, okay, we expect them to be in front of you guys at some point, or sometimes maybe just a chair and staff, depending on what they're doing. So we are trying to kind of keep an eye on, properties that people give us a call about, or ones that we do notice, so they don't get into a situation where they'd have to be torn down.
Right.
So we're trying to do that on an internal side. And I know there was discussion about, looking at the criteria for dangerous buildings and the process for creating a process for H Park when there's a dangerous building.
There's also one section of your ordinance that, and it's only one definition, but the definition's demolition by neglect. And if there was more.
Yes, we're looking
built
at
around that.
Yes.
Then some of these issues would be resolved, I think.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the items. Again, it's prioritizing and making sure everything's getting addressed in the department. But yeah, looking at a demolition, I was thinking dangerous buildings, and I knew there was a proper definition, but it was demolition by neglect. But yeah, looking at the process for that.
I mean, maybe the city has to hire a structural engineer or an architect. I mean, it was part of my education, and part of what I did was well, historic preservation, but also part of what I did is I worked for an agency that bought Strum housing
Okay.
and took the residents, put them somewhere while they rehabilitated those houses and then moved them back in. And I was the architect who said, yeah, this is what you have to do.
Yeah, so it's on,
maybe
it's on staff's
talent.
radar to look at how do we put the process in place if we ever have to get there? And then how do we identify the buildings so they never get there? So we are trying to.
Well, that's good to hear.
To
That's a
look
good
into that,
update.
yes.
I appreciate that.
Not a problem.
Okay, so moving right along, because it's after 9 o'clock. E2 is update on replacing the damaged historic signs and conforming locations. And Michael, you did a drive around and.
Yeah, I think
double
all
check.
of the signs need to be replaced.
Okay.
I took pictures and we had a meeting back in November. And there were like 6 of them that need to be replaced, but really now all 8 of them are in pretty bad shape. And then there's the issue of the sign that's located on Savannah Road near School Lane, which I think is incorrectly
It's
placed there.
Okay.
And the facial is completely ripped off the sign and it needs to be moved down to McPhee. And there's another issue, I think, that came up during a meeting 1.5 or 2 years ago with the sign on Monroe Avenue across from the library. We just need to double check to make sure that that sign is in the proper location.
Yeah, so if you want to email me all of that information, we will take a look at it.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I'll pass it on to
Yeah.
the right people, because
What's happened is that it's like the surface on the signs, they've just sort of disintegrated and you can't really read them. There's a couple where you can read, but there's a couple of them that have faded drastically between November and now. So, we pride ourselves in
yeah,
being a historic town. It's just really good to be. Oh, and then the other issue is the possibility of putting a sign on this side of the Canal Bridge front in Gills Neck Road. There isn't anything there right now. And I know Anne Marie was aware of that in the meeting that we had back in November.
So you don't.
Yep, just
Yep.
put it all in an email and
Yep.
I can get into the contact with the right people.
Okay.
And then about the new sign, I will definitely follow up with Anne Marie and see
Okay.
what the process is for that one.
Okay.
Yeah, because actually you come down Savannah, go to the beach, or you come from the beach and onto
Know where it
Savannah, and
starts.
you don't know that you're entering a historic district.
Right.
So, and then E3 is an H-Park workshop training. So Preservation Delaware is, who had been one of the partners about 15 years ago or something like that. They along with the city of Lewis and SHPO funded, and there was somebody else, a division that I don't think exists. And they jointly funded a really nice, I still have the binder.
Yeah,
You do?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Came
You-
up.
You were there, or it was gifted to you?
No, I was there.
Oh, were you really? Okay, great. So, I mean, this was a phenomenal thing, and Preservation Delaware would like to sort of spearhead getting it happening again. Also, the state of Maryland does some really good training programs, and I sit on the PDI board, and so somebody's going to contact them to see, number one, if there's any possibility of having their people come and talk to our people, or, if there's any advantage there. And now, of course, we would probably need some funding. And so that's another thing. There's some state historic grants available through Preservation Delaware, which Preservation Delaware is also looking into. So I think, and then, in my conversation with PDI, we had also thought, well, if all the historic towns in the state were invited, all those that have districts and commissions, and we just have a very minor amount of money that we ask them to chip in, or they chip in what they can based on what they can afford, that would be a way. And do you want to say anything at this point?
You mean about the summit?
No, about you were your suggested project.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was talking about. I think everyone knows I'm the 2022 president of the Sussex County Association of Realtors. And back a month or two ago, more than a month or two ago, Barbara and I met with Anne Marie. And through that conversation about various things, I had come up with the idea that the SCORE, as we're known as, have a historic preservation summit that would include the entire county. Unfortunately, I know we have city officials here, but
unfortunately, we have city officials.
yeah.
You want to rephrase that? Change the
Well, no,
punctuation?
I apologize. I apologize for what I'm about to say, but it's totally irrelevant. My association executive has been in touch with Anne Marie's office several times, and I understand that before the election, everybody was very busy, but a lot of time has passed and we haven't heard anything. We wanted to do this in conjunction with the cities, not just Lewis, but Milton and wherever else in Sussex County. There's a historic district. Came to my realization after not hearing from anyone in Anne Marie's office that we really don't need the city's participation in this. I think that we can organize a educational summit for realtor members, but also open it up to the public to advance, knowledge, information on historic preservation, especially in Sussex County. Now I have to take that to my board. They have to approve a task force. And as soon as they do that, I will loop Barbara in and whoever else you may know in the county. But we would probably envision something. Our association building can host about 150 to 200 people in our two rooms. And so probably what it would be like is just having some expert panels. If we could get a mayor or two to show up and give their 2 cents, that would make it a little bit more gravitas. But just having different panelists talk about, and also invited maybe SHPO and University of Delaware. So I'll keep you posted, but that would be a really big event, I think beneficial to realtors who sell in the historic districts. And also the public. And I'm crafting ways that this could be done at no charge to people attending. So fingers crossed.
Probably would be good that if the first most historic town in the county and second most historic town in the state had some government officials there.
So George,
Yes.
Yeah.
do you think you might send me an email with some information about this? So
Sure.
I'm the newbie here. I'm happy to
Yeah,
learn more.
absolutely. Well, when I
see what I can do
when
to
loop
help
Barbara
out.
in, I'll pull you in as well. So
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
And happy to loop me in so then I can
Yeah.
follow up as well.
Yeah, and I didn't mean we don't need the city, but
Yeah,
I don't think it's essential.
And we all understand that we are part of the city.
Yeah,
We
do.
need the
Yeah.
city.
So,
and-
yeah, we need the city.
Barbara mentioned Preservation Delaware Incorporated a short while ago. That group, that covers the state of Delaware, has a lot of money. They were funded by the DuPonts. I was head of that organization several years ago. I know what they have in the bank. I don't know how you get your hands onto it.
No. That's being spent down. They don't have a stockpile of money.
They had $1 million
Well,
8 years ago.
we'll talk later. It's not
You had a good party?
No, we would have invited you. No, we didn't. So, okay, let me move along here. We have to do, so anyway, so the workshop training, we know we have to do it in-house, for starters, and then we want to see if we can't develop something that's more beneficial for a wider audience. So we'll talk about that too, Janelle.
Okay.
And And now we have to do an election of officers. Every year, we're required to do election of officers. The first time we meet after the city has their elections, we didn't meet in June. So we're doing it now. So there's 3 office positions. There's the chair, that's me right now. There's the vice chair, which is George right now. And there's the secretary, which is Michael. So I
Make a
would,
motion that all officers remain in the same position that they are in perpetuity. Okay, or until removed from office.
I don't know, am I to take that as a payback?
I think so.
Well, if there's anyone who is dying to have to occupy any of these chairs, please don't hesitate. Bill's looking away.
I'm happy.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess we need some kind of, I guess that was your motion. We need a second.
Perpetuity.
I'll second that.
Take the perpetuity off.
Classic Randy Burton smartassism.
I'll second that.
Yes.
For
Okay.
the current term.
All right, and so Bill, do you want to continue and ask for a vote for everybody?
Yes. So of course I said I second that. And can we take a vote? Randy?
Aye.
Myself? Aye.
George?
Aye.
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 Come on, Michael. Aye. Thank you. All right.
Ayes have it.
Yes. Thank you, I think. All right, and at that point, we have chair and staff yet?
Yeah.
Okay,
Which I had out here somewhere.
yes, okay, it's a pretty short, relatively short list. Relatively short list. And Joe, do you want to run?
Is there any questions on the chair and staff as you see it?
No, I don't think we had any issues. There's nothing difficult. One of them was that Franklin Avenue driveway and brick walkway that was, you know,
Shells, yeah.
yeah, what required for a chair and staff. And I think that was about it. Okay. And I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh,
All right.
okay. Yes,
Sorry,
sir.
Aaron Mushrush, I'm a reporter with the Cape Gazette.
Yes, sir. Nice
and I
to
will
see you
be
again.
Very quick, nice to see you. Thank you for having me. And I do understand somewhat the purview of H Park. However, I have one question. And the average median price of a Lewis home in June was $575,000. The average salary in Lewis is $43,000. Is there any consideration giving when granting demolition to what it does for affordable housing? I believe Mrs. Wilkinson mentioned that there were renters at 354 Pilot Town Road. Is that short-term rental, or is this within the purview of H Park to consider affordable housing before granting demolition?
We can give, why don't we put together a position that we can send out to you, if you don't mind?
No, that's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to be able to ask everyone this at a time.
We do not have anything about that as part of our review process
Okay.
or our guidelines. What we do have in our guidelines, though, is it's not called affordable housing, but it's what's it called? It's called, no.
I think
no, no.
it's something that Brian can look into and
Yeah,
definitely
I
get
would
the
recommend that
exact
we-
information.
Madam Chair, I would recommend that we,
It's financial hardship. We have a section on financial hardship. And it's very detailed in the process. And it came out of a while back when Elaine Zimmerman was chair. And a couple of people went to a workshop, and it was one of the main topics on how to address what's it called? Hardship, something, what?
Financial hardship.
Financial hardship. So it's basically, we do have people in the historic district that through longtime ownership or inheriting a property now have a very expensive piece of property. It would be very expensive if they wanted to sell it, but they don't want to sell it. And they want to keep it, and yet they can't really afford to do the things that sometimes would be required of them under normal situation. So it's a process that allows us to work with those people and also protect their privacy, so there's some parts of it have to be a part of a public meeting, et cetera. And I think it's pretty clear. To my knowledge, we've never had anybody come before us and request it. But that's, there is going to be the building of workforce housing on Savannah Road one of these days.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just that this was kind of my time to be able to address everyone in H Park. So I can, of course, wait for the response. And it was something that popped up when I heard that there were renters living there. So I was like, is this a short-term rental or is this people that are working in the city that need that type of housing?
I
That's
think
all.
we should work on a statement that this organization as a whole can provide at once and perhaps in written form,
Yeah.
rather so that we have some time to consider how best to address your question. If you want, I can give you my email address and then I can get in contact with the chair and we'll be in contact with you on a written statement. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's just, like I said, it's just a way for me to address everyone as a whole. And I don't require the answers immediately. We can always work on that.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the information you provided as well.
Okay, yes. Okay, thank you. So now,
Move to adjourn.
okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.